It's football season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just
Get out of here. You rotten bums! You overpaid Winnie! Vile thing! You make my butt sting! I detest you! You're all garbage! All of you! Back up the truck! Back it up!
That at some point the referee can award a score if this type of behavior happens again. For now, it's a replay of second down.
It's time for the old time happy hour. So pick up your step and smile a while.
I don't know. Oh, actually, I meant to fade out like a professional. Hang on.
It's
Okay, there we go. I faded out like a professional. I'm not happy. I'm extremely sad. I mean, it's like what happened yesterday is like if the movie Star Wars was the bad empire going against the really bad empire. Either way, it sucks. And this Super Bowl is going to suck. I'm just saying it now. It's going to suck, but probably be a really good game. Hello, intern Noe, the pro commissioner, stud of my life. How are you doing today, buddy?
Stud of your life. That's the new one. No, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I've gotten over the Eagles winning. I'm just going to have to root for the Chiefs now, the former Dallas Texans.
I don't even hate the Chiefs, but everybody else has me hating the Chiefs. I think it would be cool if they could finally complete the 3 in a row. You know, we've had San Francisco was close, Dallas was close, and this is, you know, this one's actually getting to the Super Bowl, though. The Niners got beat by the Giants in the 90 NFC title game. Of course, Dallas got beat by the Niners in the 94 one, the season that was considered null and void after that game, and nothing else has ever happened after that game. I think it would be cool if the Chiefs would win it, but I'm so tired of this whole ref thing and all that they've become tiresome, even though that really isn't their fault.
No, I mean, it's just they're a victim of their own brilliance. It happens to every team. It happened to the Patriots. It happened to the Cowboys. It happened.
I tell all my exes that's what's happened to me. My own brilliance has ruined me. I just can't help it. Like, I'm just so awesome.
A lot of it's hating. Like that's all it is, because they wish their team was doing well. Mm-hmm. I had that thought process in the 2000s and 2010s with the Patriots, but then I stepped back and realized I really didn't hate the team. I was just envious of their success and wishing the Cowboys would duplicate it. That's still the most impressive thing. Almost 20 years of success during the salary cap era, during high free agency, parity, and they were able to maintain that type of success. They found the formula, and the Chiefs, they have their formula too. They have like a holy trinity of a great front office, a great coaching staff, and players that are committed to winning at all costs. So naturally, people want to find something wrong with them. So the refs are in the pocket. And then now you have Taylor Swift dating Kelsey, and it just only makes it worse.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the controversial fourth down or the sneak that didn't make it. I didn't think he technically got over. It's one of those that honestly, whatever they called, sure, it seemed fine. I mean, it was so close. I mean, we're talking again. Somebody put on a thread talking about it. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar organization that could literally GPS the ball But they don't want to because you want that kind of controversy. People need to understand that. You know, the league is not, I'm sorry, folks, I know this is going to make some people mad. The league is not scripted. This isn't all some bit, because that would be stupid to, you know, be willing to lose possible billions to get caught doing that. And also, I can't remember who it was last week that basically said, so you really think 31 other teams are going to help a team get scripted? If everything is scripted, then Dallas would have won a Super Bowl between 1996 and now. I mean, you would have given the team that's always the top of ratings, that's always the top of merchandise, a guy that's influential as Jerry Jones is to the NFL, even when they've butted heads. You would have give them a Super Bowl by this point.
Or maybe there's higher ratings watching the Cowboys get to a certain level of success just to watch them fall.
No, because you then lose look, we're 30 years on, and I will be the first to tell you, I am shocked that they still pull the numbers in, because we're talking about generations of Cowboy fans that have no clue what a Super Bowl is. You risk losing that. If you were writing this out and faking it, eventually, if Dallas doesn't do something soon, eventually people will start going, okay, well, I'm just going to go watch the Lions or whoever the flavor of the month is.
Well, you know, there's a lot of Cowboy season ticket holders that are starting to just say they're not going to, you know, buy another season ticket. So I've seen online a couple of individuals, they're not going to buy 2025 season tickets just because they're tired of seeing it, especially after the recent head coaching hire, which we'll discuss a lot.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Well, that's where we're going to start the show. And by the way, that was a very long intro with no real path. I'm just in that mood already. It's been one of those days. But
Terry,
I was about to say, how are you doing and what are you drinking?
sorry that I.
That's okay.
No, I'm doing well, and I'm drinking. The translation is just Ethiopian honey wine.
Is that stuff we tried?
Is the stuff you tried?
Oh yes, you better bring that. If you have any left, bring some for the Super Bowl, please.
Oh, it's in a clear glass. So it's
oh my God, it's magic.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just drinking that. How are you, buddy? And I will bring some.
Yes.
For the Super Bowl. How are you, and what are you drinking?
I'm on my third 99 proof, so I should tell you what my day's been like. I mean, it's been a weird day with this whole Cowboys. No, I'm doing good. I'm drinking 99 proof for kickers. I've got beach whiskey. You like the little setup right there to celebrate the Super Bowl that's going to suck. But I'm drinking beach whiskey in my cup tonight, chasing with some shots. If you want to take your Super Bowl to the beach, just go to beachwhiskey.com. They have 2 flavors. They're about to have more. They have some canned drinks they're coming out with, so please check them out, beachwhiskey.com. All right, so for those that are here to talk, almost 4,000 people in here. Hello, everybody. We're going to talk the title games. That's going to get happen. We're going to talk some other things, but for the beginning, we're going to talk about the big news. And of course, that is the big news that Friday. And this is the reason why we didn't do a closing time show about this, because it's like, well, it's 2 days out from Monday, so we'll just wait. And I'm kind of glad I did, because I think I feel a little bit different about it now. But Friday, in a very much news cycle dump that Jerry Jones never does, that just tells you right there what they think of the hire. Whether you like it or not, the fact that he dumped that on Friday tells you where he feels about this hire. But it came out late that Brian Schottenheimer had indeed underdog somehow talked the room into hiring him as a head coach. What was your initial thoughts, and what are your thoughts now? Or are they still the same?
It's still the same. I don't like the hire. I like Brian Schottenheimer, the person. He seems to be very likable. And we're going to talk about pros and cons of this move. He seems likable. Dak likes him, which is a plus. I just know his history. I know what he did in Seattle.
Good offensive coordinator when he was in Seattle.
And then that finish wasn't that great. And the part I was, don't really like about what his time in Seattle was, they had some numbers, but it was just never consistent or good toward the end of the season. And that's,
that's a weird thing, because you're 100% right. But with completely different staff now, new head coach, new quarterback. You still have Metcalf and Lockett and a couple guys, but that's what Seattle's done the last couple of years, with a completely different staff. It's kind of weird how that's worked out.
Yeah, and if I could say something positive about Schottenheimer, he was asked to be more of a passing offensive coordinator. That was when the whole let Russ cook started taking off. So I guess to his credit, he tried to go that way, but I mean Seattle, especially at that time period,
Yeah.
they were just run heavy. That was their identity. That's how Russell Wilson was successful. Get out of the pocket, move around, and then of course, I didn't like his time with the Jets, 06 to 2011, with two head coaches. I guess he was good enough to stay for the Mangini era to the Rex Ryan era. And the 09 and 2010 Jet team that made the conference championship back-to-back years, two really good running backs, 2,000-yard capable running backs. So that, and a great offensive line, great defense, that really carried the team more than the offense in general.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're gonna do that, and he was the quarterback, was he? No, he was the offensive coordinator there. If you're gonna do that, you have to give him credit for taking a Mark Sanchez led offense to 2 straight title games. I mean, he was working with a quarterback that I to this day, one of the things that I will go to my grave confused about is that Mark Sanchez made it to 2 more title games than Tony Romo did.
Yeah, and in a tough conference too. I mean, 09, they had to go through some really good teams just to get to play the Colts for the AFC title game. And then in 2010, which I thought was their best team, they beat the Patriots in New England, I think a 14-2 Patriot team. They had a big comeback against the Steelers in the AFC title game. So, yeah, I mean, those were some good teams. But to me, I don't really credit – I credit him in the sense he just saw the strength of this team was not Mark Sanchez, a great offensive line, 2 solid running backs. Let's just focus on that. And
hang on. Because I got to admit, I was not expecting this. His total stats are not great for Mark Sanchez, but in the playoffs, 60% in 6 games. He technically was also on the Dallas roster in 2015, but when they lost to Green Bay, but he didn't play. And by the way, Dak has credited Mark Sanchez with a big part of his development. Like he's always it wouldn't shock me actually if maybe Mark Sanchez becomes a quarterback coach for Dallas because he's got connections with with Brian Schottenheimer and he's got connections being here with Dallas, for his last year. But anyway, in the playoffs, in 6 games, he is 4-2. He threw 9 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. He has a rating of 97. That's good numbers. Like that's good numbers, period. 60%. He threw for almost 160 times. So it's not, it wasn't as little of, it wasn't 90% run like we all remember. He did throw only for 15 when they beat Cincinnati, but he threw for 30 and 23 the next 2 games. And then in the last year when he won 2 playoff games, and the game they lost, he actually played well. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 233 yards, and 60 complete percentage. He threw 31, 25, and 33 attempts. Mark Sanchez legitimately has good playoff numbers.
Yeah, those 2 years, went 2-1 each year. Again, man, I'm not saying he's bad. He was a rookie and a second-year
No,
player.
I'm saying he was bad. He was a bad quarterback outside of the playoffs.
But I guess when I look at it, I'm like, okay, no rookie's ever made it to the Super Bowl. No rookie quarterback's ever made it to the Super Bowl. So he was already behind there. There was already 1 strike against him. So he was serviceable. He was just what the Jets needed.
Oh, yeah.
Someone that wouldn't cautious enough not to make mistakes. A rookie version of Alex Smith, essentially. A game manager. He just kind of just stayed that way for a while, and really toward the end of his career, he was kind of just the same guy. He had some bits and pieces with the Eagles in 2014 where he had some starts and he wasn't bad. A little bit more aggressive than he used to be, but for the most part, he was a game manager.
No, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying I do think that there is some credit that Brian Schottenheimer deserves with what he did with him. Then he was offensive coordinator for the Rams, 22 to 2014. We all remember how terrible they are, but you also have to remember whenever they were healthy, when Sam Bradford was healthy, the Rams did not have a terrible offense. You had Steven Jackson. You had a decent quarterback. The problem was Bradford could just never stay healthy. Then he went to college. Then he went to a quarterback coach for Indianapolis in 2016, 2017. And then, as we talked about, the aforementioned offensive coordinator 2018 to 2020, passing game coordinator for Jacksonville 2021. If I'm not mistaken, isn't that like the best year that Trevor Lawrence had as a pro was 2021?
Yeah, that was the second season. Or no. 22 was his best year. Yeah, 21 was his rookie year. That was the Urban Meyer year.
That was Urban Meyer. Okay, yeah, never mind. I don't know why I thought it was. Yeah, so that's a wash. Whatever shot. I mean, Urban Meyer was just so terrible. And then, of course, he became the coaching analyst for the first year with the Cowboys, and then coordinator in 2023. I know he didn't call the plays, but there's a lot of people, and this was said in the moment too. This wasn't, revisionist history. But if we all remember, in 2023. The Cowboy offense started kind of slow. They were just kind of, it was tough for them. And then after the third game, they kind of took off. A lot of people inside the Cowboys credit Brian Schottenheimer with basically kind of told Mike, look, you call the plays, but I've got to design them. And he handed that off to him. So I do think he's done more inside for the Cowboys than what I think a lot of people think when they hear, oh, he didn't call the plays. Yeah,
he did a lot of planning. He was offensive coordinator in title, but he wasn't calling the plays like you said. But he had an influence in how the scheme was implemented on game day. And I know that time period you're talking about, because this is the time period where Dak was starting to be considered the MVP candidate. He ended up finishing second in the MVP vote in 2023. I guess much of the credit is to Schottenheimer's tweaks last season. Honestly, I guess I'm just being not an optimist here, because when I think of the Cowboys in 2023, I just think, yeah, they just padded their stats in against weaker opponents. Anytime they went up 2 scores, Dan Quinn's defense came in, created turnovers, and that would just set up the offense really well. Yeah. So I guess I'm just a pessimist there, man. Like, I see the stats; they look nice, but a lot of it was just padded on in blowouts against inferior opponents.
I don't disagree with you, but I know, and this is to credit to Jalen Hurts, as much as we talk about the deficiencies he's had. Him and Pat Mahomes right now are presently like the two, if I'm not mistaken, the two quarterbacks in the league right now that have winning records against winning or teams with at least 10 wins. Every other quarterback has a losing record. Every quarterback in today's NFL, and let's be honest, every quarterback, every offensive player, every defensive player in the history of sports, you always pad your stats against the bad teams. And then the good teams, you just hope to break even. I get your point, though, because it felt like every good team jumped out on Dallas 400-0. And then, we were even joking about it. Like that Cincinnati loss this year, it sucked, but it was kind of nice to finally have one of those close, weird losses, because it had been a while since Dallas had a close, weird loss. It was either Dallas won 58-4 or Dallas got beat 58-4. And I know I'm making those scores up, but you know my point.
I remember 2017, we were celebrating a blowout win at San Francisco. And you and I were looking at each other and we were thinking, man, it's so nice to just so nice to have a blowout so we can just relax the rest of the game, because there was a stretch for a few years there where, especially like 2012, every game was a 1-score game.
Oh yeah.
It was just frustrating. You're on pins and needles because you just didn't know which way it would swing.
Hey, we've known that. Oh, you're talking about something else. All right, so let's go ahead. The press conference was today. So here is, let me make sure I get this right. All right, here is Jerry Jones talking about everybody saying, hey, you need a yes man. They've got to do what you do. And I thought I thought this was an interesting point he made.
This is as big a risk as you could take. As big a risk as you could take. No head coaching experience. Now, let me share something with you. With all of that, you've just heard him reference his osmosis, his family. Anybody in this room that doesn't believe the apple doesn't go far from the tree has missed it someplace down the road, especially if there was an effort to make it that way, and there was an effort. But then you go around to the countless numbers of coaches that Shotty has served on staff with and been around, the countless players. How often do you have someone that has 25, I'm going to say 25, it may be 26, of years of working through the human relationship and working, aspiring to learn, of have his ears and eyes wide open and looking for techniques and looking for things that make coaches better.
So that's Jerry basically saying, I don't have to be in a comfort level. I don't know how much that's true. I do think that I know I go, and this is one of those things that we're going to have that discussion at some point in the offseason about Jerry Jones. You always hear, well, he needs a puppet. He needs a puppet. But you and I were talking like, what did Mike McCarthy do that was puppet? Like, I don't ever remember a moment where you felt like, and people say, oh, well, Jerry's the one that announces injuries and stuff. Dude, that's what a GM does. And I know y'all don't like it, but he's the GM. That's what a GM does. People will say, oh, well, he's the only GM that has a radio show. No, I actually searched it, and almost every GM has a segment on at least one radio station in their home area where they come on and talk about do what Jerry does. So I don't think that this is a puppet move. I think that they're very honest about they want the continuity. Now, my argument is, why do you want that continuity? What is it about Mike McCarthy's time that you feel that you've got to carry it over? That's the weird one to me.
First, I agree with you 100%. That's one. Two, I'm not calling him Shotzi or whatever Jerry Jones was calling him. And three,
well, he's going to be Shotzi.
It's Schottenheimer.
I want Dallas to have a great start to the year offensively next year, and then I can come on here and say, today we dissect the shots gun offense. Isn't that cool? Shots gun offense.
I'm gonna drink more.
I am too, actually.
Okay.
Bring up the diesel.
The idea of continuity. This is the same issue I have with the Steelers. The last, 8, because they won a Super Bowl in 2008. They went to a Super Bowl in 2010. Do they want the same consistency they've had since, 2011 or since 2016, their last playoff win? Like, what's the continuity you're talking about? Like with the Cowboys, they haven't made it to the NFC title game, let alone Super Bowl, since 1995 season.
Yeah.
We're going on 30 seasons now.
Yeah.
I don't want that continuity. I want something different.
Exactly.
Whether we go Dave Campo years 5 and 11, or whether we go Jimmy Johnson, I just want something different. I don't want continuity, because I know for a fact with certainty what's going to happen with continuity. We're going to have some promise. Some people are going to be praising Schottenheimer, praising Dak. He'll get some MVP votes, and then they'll crater in the playoffs. Maybe win one game. But there is a plateau with this continuity.
I can almost promise you we're going to get Jerry back to where he was before this year, and they're going to make some moves in free agency. It's not going to be a big splash. It's, folks, they haven't done that since Brandon Carr. But they also proved, and yes, I know they didn't make it past the second round, but I'm just talking about to get to the playoffs. I felt if it was any other team but Dallas making the moves they made since 2014, consistently the moves they've made, everybody would talk about how shrewd they are. But because it's Jerry, though, that's just not allowed to happen. I don't have a problem if they build the team like they did in 2021 and 2022. Of course, I want to get past that second round, but I'm just saying you got to get there first. And that's the biggest thing is first you've got to get there. But I do think maybe in the long run, one of the best things that happened to the Cowboy fandom is Philadelphia and Washington playing in the NFC title game. Because that took one of the last, well, at least now the only thing Dallas fans really have over anybody in the NFC is if you haven't won a Super Bowl, or if you're San Francisco or Washington and you haven't won a Super Bowl more recently than Dallas, but they've at least both made title games in that 30-year stretch. Here's what this is what Jerry Jones had to say about the fans and what, and I got to admit, I was a little taken aback how open he was right here.
Well, you have touched on one point. Our fans have been very patient. Very patient. And through you to them, I want to tell them how appreciative that I am of the support and of their interest in the Dallas Cowboys. Now, there's a whole bunch of those fans that look and are interested because they want to see me grovel, whatever it is. But I'm not putting that up there much. But to those fans who have been with us, this decision to bring Shotty in is risky.
Shotty.
It's not a Hail Mary at all in any way. But it's founded over some very unique, as I started off, unique sets of circumstances. I know how much our fans are into the Dallas Cowboys. And for me to be into it is no solace at all. We're interested, they're interested, I'm interested in getting to those playoffs and winning.
So that's what he said about the fans. And I will admit, he's at times, I know this was 20 years ago when he said this, but the famous, are you happy with those 3 Super Bowls? I bet you are. Kind of saying, you take what you get. I gave you 3 Super Bowls. I felt there was a little bit of a mea culpa right there, like admitting like, hey, we have not done well by our fans and we appreciate our fans. Again, what does that mean? Playoff or roster? I don't know. I do feel, and to be fair, I think this is always like it is when there's a coaching change, even if you're not a fan of the coaching change or like who it is, there does feel at least a little bit of newness.
In what Jerry Jones' words are, yeah, it's a little bit new to me, but his actions always tell me the real truth to me.
Exactly.
Standing pat when he says all in. And I know he really didn't mean all in the way he thought he meant all in, but
I still think he did. I think this hire, and you and I have been trying to tell people on this show or just in our sports pages and just in general talks, I have tried to tell people that Stephen Jones runs way more of this team than people think. And I think he's ran this team for a lot longer than people think. And Jerry's saying they're all in and they don't go all in. And then by all accounts of people that I trust as valued sources, not only the people that posted it in articles, but people that I've talked to, this was a Stephen Jones all the way hire. Jerry was not, and that's why he dumped it on Friday. Like that was Jerry showing like, I don't really want this hire. Now, I don't believe those that said it was between him and Dion because they never talked to Dion. I think Jerry wanted to go Kellen Moore. Stephen was like, no, this, for whatever reason, whether it be what Dak told him, and Dak was very much like, I want Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach, or if they just actually believe that he can do it, I think this is 100% Stephen Jones move.
Now, the question for Dak is, we all saw what he said after that Atlanta loss when he got hurt.
This team fucking sucks.
Now, I wish I could just, have Dak on this show so I could ask him.
I'll call him.
Dak. Yeah. Hey, Dak.
Hey, Dak.
What does Brian Schottenheimer bring that will help the Dallas Cowboys go from we suck to we have a chance?
Well, I think right or wrong, and you and I have been torn about this, you got to remember what happened after the Atlanta game. And then you saw Dallas start to play better with a depleted roster when people on defense started coming back. And it wasn't even everybody. It was basically when Micah Parsons came back, all of a sudden the defense looked really good. Let's not forget, this defense in the last week of the season held a Washington offense, and I still make the contention if Dak would have been playing in that game, they probably win that game.
Well,
so I think there's a little bit more optimism of, okay, maybe right or wrong. I'm not even saying this is right. I'm just saying this is how I think they're thinking it. The optimism is, wait, injuries did play a lot bigger part than we realized. We would have figured it out if Dak would have stayed healthy. We might have still been in the playoff contention, all that kind of stuff, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And to your point, injuries, and we talked about this personally. Injuries were a major issue. Injuries, and then, of course, like inconsistency along the offensive line. I think with time, Cooper Beebe and Guyton are going to be pretty serviceable to really good offensive linemen for the Cowboys. I actually like both of those signings. I love Guyton's size. He might be playing out of position right now, but he has a place along the line somewhere.
You know what? Fun thing about him, though, I was looking at the PFF stats at the end of the year. He was just perfectly average. He wasn't as bad as we think, but let's be fair. We had Tyron Smith for 13 years sitting there, and Tyron Smith's average is Hall of Fame level. We don't know if Guyton's average will be Hall of Fame level or not, but let's also remember Smith struggled mightily his rookie year as well. I do think, though, eventually you move Guyton to right tackle if you can. I am more and more hoping. I've seen a couple of draft mocks saying, if things work right in the top 6, a Kelvin Banks from Texas might fall to Dallas. Dude, you take him. You take him, you move Guyton to right, and all of a sudden, you've kind of fixed your offensive line on the fly, and you still have Zach Martin, who I think he would look and go, hey, wait a minute. Okay, I want to come back. I'm ready to try one more time or two more times, because Martin wasn't as good as he was in the past because Martin had to do more this year. And I think, anyway, that's just my belief.
And then having someone like Guyton in year 2 with another offseason in the NFL, switching more to his natural position of right tackle next to Martin, Zach Martin might not have to do as much work. And with Cooper Beebe, who I did like as center, he had his ups and downs, but I liked how he played toward the end of the season. Having Beebe at center, Martin at right guard, and Guyton at right tackle. I kind of like that right side of the line a lot. And, of course, you got the all-pro Tyler Smith at left guard. So, yeah, if you can figure out that left tackle situation and then add a couple of pieces for depth, yeah, we're good. Before we continue, though, I like that we're having some people responding on the chat. To answer John Stafford's question, I would say, which was how drunk was Jerry when he hired Brian Schottenheimer, or Shotty? I would say about 1.5 Johnny Walker Blue Labels.
I think he was asleep. I think Steven did it. In fact, maybe Steven dumped it on Friday and Jerry woke up Saturday. What the hell?
Hungover.
Did I do that? No, that dude's drank way too much to be hungover. He's hungover for him is just normal. Like, that's just if he's not drinking. No, actually, I meant to bring this up to you. I noticed all year long, he never was drinking at the games like he always does. It was always a bottle of water. And he used to always have that Johnny Walker right there next to him. I still contend something health-wise might have happened to him in the past year.
He's aged rapidly the last couple of years.
Well,
maybe so.
You realize that plastic surgery in of itself is 20 years old. All right, so here's what I did think this was a touching part. Here's what Brian Schottenheimer said about the legacy. And by the way, I guess maybe there's a part of me that likes this because you and I, one of the things that we bonded over is we both love Marty Schottenheimer. We both felt that he's just one of those guys that he got too conservative when it mattered most, but for the most part, whenever he coached, their teams won. And this is what Brian said about his dad.
Legendary coach, a great man, but he was an incredible father. And he's impacted me more than anyone in this profession. I know he's looking down on me. I know he's proud. And I miss him very much. But I know what he'd say to me. He'd say, Brian, the easy part is over. It's time to get to work.
Now, I want to say one thing. I listened to the whole press conference, and I like a lot of what he said. But, man, that dude knows – he took public speaking. Like, he was almost like a preacher up there with the pauses and the exaggerated pause. I mean, he knew how – I mean, you could tell in watching the video, you could tell the writers were actually – and the media were kind of getting into what he was saying. Here's what Steven had to say, and we'll wrap up the audio with Steven.
Where it didn't go right last year. And obviously we're also evaluating where it didn't go right, in terms of, this drought that people say we're in terms of a championship game or a Super Bowl. And, we just have to continue to make this roster better. It'll certainly be something that Jerry, myself, Will and his staff, and now Coach Shoddy and his staff, we'll sit down and take a look and see what we have to do better. I think we got a lot of great pieces. You ask why Shoddy? I think Shoddy's the perfect combination of keeping some continuity, but also affecting change. And we have to support that as well in terms of being behind him and doing the things he wants to do. I've walked in Shoddy's shoes. I have a lot of deference in myself as well, working with Jerry. Shoddy did the same with Mike. Would he do things different? Is he going to do things different than Mike? Absolutely. I'm convinced of that. And,
trying to spin that where, no, Mike didn't walk away. We walked away from Mike. This is what the NFL said
Washington
about that.
has been advised that at some point the referee can award a score if this type of behavior happens again.
We're going to keep that. That is going to be such great audio to use for drops whenever the Cowboys suck next year. Now, you know what? You know what's happening next year, right? 14-3, number 1 seed, lose at home in the second in the division round to Aaron Rodgers traded back to the Packers or somewhere. Yeah.
Oh man, fantastic.
But at the end of the day, they've made their hire. And I told you this Friday. I said, "Hey, look, he'll be a good coach if he hires a good staff. That's all coaches." I like the first move, Matt Eberflus. I know everybody's going to think, "Oh, timeouts in Chicago." Dude, go look at what he did with Indianapolis as a defense. He took a defense that, like in 2017, was almost as bad as what Dallas was at the beginning of this year and the infamous 2012 or 2020 year. And he took them, and by the time he left 2 years later, he had them as a top 10 defense. And that was with less talent than what Dallas had. I like Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, as long as he's not managing a game, I'm happy with him. He's a great defensive coordinator. This is the issue with probably you and I talked about Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs. He'll probably go in the Hall of Fame just for his efforts as defensive coordinator for both the Giants and the Chiefs. And I feel Spagnuolo probably should not be a head coach ever, but he can make the Hall of Fame just for that. I think Eberflus, I'm not comparing him to Spagnuolo, but in the sense that Eberflus is a great defensive coordinator. There's 30 other NFL teams that would love to have Eberflus as their defensive coordinator.
No way. When we're doing this show, January 27th, 2029, when we're here to talk about Matt Eberflus as the new head coach of the Cowboys.
Whoa.
In 4 years, Dallas went to the playoffs twice, but couldn't get out of the first round. And you know it's happening. It's already happening. No, I long time, but no, you're right. As a defense coordinator, I think he's a great hire. They're talking to that Kevin Koger. He's the tight end coach for the Falcons. A lot of people were doing the whole joke of, well, why do you want the guy that Kyle Pitts? He's only been there 1 year, folks. This isn't the guy that developed. And by the way, you could make the case that Kyle Pitts, I know he had more yards his rookie year when he hit 1,000 yards, but he was more efficient this year. He scored more touchdowns this year. I mean, you could make the case that he improved Kyle Pitts. That kind of shit, position coaches they're not there to create the guys. They're just there to keep them at the level they are. And it really doesn't matter because Schottenheimer is going to call the plays. So I really don't care who they get offensively. For me, it's get the right people defensively.
Yeah, the defense improves. If they're just middle of the road consistently throughout the year, this is a playoff team. There is talent. Obviously, when we get into our offseason shows, we'll talk more about draft needs for the Cowboys, free agent needs. There's a lot, but if they just get the right coaching, just like with the LA Chargers this year, they got the right coach. He turned them around immediately. Kind of like what Brian's dad, Marty Schottenheimer, did with the Browns in the 80s, with the Chiefs in the 90s, with the San Diego Chargers in the 2000s.
They were a team that was in the playoffs 2 years ago. Did he turn them around as much as he just kind of did the same thing that they had done? That's the thing about Brandon Staley. That was the thing that was so frustrating about him. They were in so many one possession. How the hell did they lose that games? And I love Harbaugh. You know that. I'm a big fan of his. But I also think that he basically kind of just did the same season that Brandon Staley would have probably done if he'd have been on there last year. I didn't feel like he completely – like, I don't look at the Chargers any stronger next year than a fringe playoff team. They're not going to challenge the Chiefs for a – and again – if they go out and get the Bosa brothers and all that, well, then things change. But I'm talking about just how they've evolved. I think they're a perfectly fine team that could be 7-10 or it could be 10-7.
I think better coaching this year helped them win those games that they probably would have lost with Brandon Staley as head coach.
That's a good point. But you could also say that averages work out too.
You could say that too. Well, I guess we'll just see what happens next season when they have a tougher schedule. They were 11-6 this year. I think all 6 of their losses, they just were not the better team.
Yeah, they were good losses. They were good losses.
It wasn't like the 2022 playoffs at Jacksonville, up 27-0.
Why does nobody talk about that more? Like that, I mean, that wasn't only a collapse. They had collapsed with a 21-0 lead within 6 minutes into the third quarter. Like, it happened so quick. And I guess just, because Staley gets fired later on, but that's like one of those, you and I always joke about this, but I mean it. If that would have been Dallas, holy crap, the memes would still be going on today about that game.
Yeah, the only reason why I still talk about the Falcons blow up in the Super Bowl is because it happened in the Super Bowl, being up 28-3 in the third quarter. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, no one talks about the Vikings 2 years ago, down 33-0, also in the same season. Against the Colts, at home, and then they come back to win in the greatest comeback in NFL history.
And you and I called it, remember?
Yeah.
Remember, we were literally watching the game, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And you're like, I was about to say the same thing. I'm like, I didn't know if they were going to come back. I think the term, because I used it a lot, I said, Minnesota at worst will be playing for the lead at some point in the fourth quarter. And they didn't winning it. But anyway, now, like I said, now it's just you kind of wait. We got to wait and see what he's going to, who they're going to bring on. Who else are they going to bring on as coaches? Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked to see like a Mark Sanchez maybe be the quarterback coach. I know he does media, so he might not want to. And then now it's draft and, the fun part. I will admit I'm sad about the season and all, but it's over. I'm now excited to see what they're going to do with the draft. They have a pick in every round. They have 12 picks, actually. They should. You and I were talking about that. You draft well, you get 3 starters and a fringe starter and some good quality players. I still think this roster is not as bad as people are trying to make it out to be. This is the same roster that a year ago everybody was saying this is a Super Bowl roster. And so now it's all they suck, so it's a terrible roster. You and I have seen this. I will give Dallas credit. Since 2014, they're not usually down 2 years in a row anymore.
Yeah, if you think about it, since 2014, 2015, just because Romo got hurt. 2017, they had a winning record, but Zeke missed. He missed 6 games. 2019, they literally won. I think they were 8-8, but they won the games they should have, and they lost the games they should have.
Well, that was when you could tell Garrett's message had fallen. That last game against Philadelphia, when their offensive game plan was just run Zeke into the middle, fall down, and throw go patterns to Cooper with 2 guys on him, you could just tell that the team, the coaching staff had lost the team. 2020, they have the injuries, and then, of course, 21, 22, 23, the playoffs. 24, they don't make the playoffs. I don't know if they'd have made it without injuries. We don't know. But again, though, they've really done a good job. People don't want to give Jerry Jones credit. But again, I always say this, if you're going to knock him, then you've got to give him credit when they win. Them not being able to get past that mythical second round, that's not all on Jerry Jones, folks. I mean, it's been different coaches. It's been different quarterbacks now. They just have, for whatever reason, have not been able to get to it. Sometimes it's just matchups, and you and I've talked about that.
A lot of times, it's the simplest. It's as simple as. I mean, we're going to talk about this in a special off-season show, but my standpoint is it's as simple as what's the common denominator, and it's GM Jerry Jones. At some point, there's a reason why GMs don't last too long, or most GMs don't last too long in the same organization. Oh. Stuff changes. You need someone with a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh mindset for the modern age. And, Cowboys haven't had the luxury of that in the last 30-some years.
Okay, so then, again, And I know what you're going to say about. I'm sorry. I know what you're going to say about, well, they did that against bad teams. That really was only 2023. In 2021 and 2022, they go 12-5 and they beat good teams. Like, it wasn't like they just got their doors beat by good. I mean, they beat good teams. So again, if you're going to knock him for they can't get past the second round, then who gets credit for the 12-5 talent? I mean, it's the same guy.
I have to admit, dude, it's still a regular season. Great regular season, but you need to do it in the playoffs. Like, why have this tease of a great team in the regular season, but you just don't show up in the playoffs?
You can't get to the playoffs if you don't have a good regular season, though.
Then why can't you copy and paste what you did in the regular season into the playoffs? Why is there a stark contrast? I mean, this is like Todd Monken in the playoffs for the Ravens the past 2 seasons. Like, I don't get it at all. Like, you played the same team in the regular season, and in the playoffs, I have Derrick Henry. Oh, but I'm just going to give him the ball like 15 times. No big deal. Oh, he's averaging 7 yards a carry. Let's just let Lamar keep passing the ball.
And Lamar had a great second half, by the way, to be fair. But you're right, 100%. No, I get it. Again, that's that offseason show, though. My whole point with the Jerry Jones thing is it's not a flat answer. It's not a black and white answer. There's shit that's got to happen again. And I'm not saying that they win these games, but Romo dropping a snap, the Dez didn't catch it, the Aaron Rodgers third and forever miracle throw, the Rams, because Sean McVay is extremely smart, figures out, hey, we can run for 200 yards with a dude that we just got off the street. Things like that. The San Francisco, those are the two that's like, I'll be honest with you, those two, and even Green Bay, the last 3 playoff losses, I just feel the better team won. I don't give a shit about the record, or at least the better matchup won. Green Bay was a terrible matchup where Dallas was last year at the end of the year. And the hubris of Dan Quinn thinking I can play safeties as linebackers because the league's not going to run. And again, Matt LaFleur said, we're just going to run the ball. And then we'll beat you with one-on-one. And Quinn, for some reason, decided, there's a lot of that. And that's not Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, I say this. I don't think Jerry Jones told Dan Quinn, hey, let's just play zone in this playoff game, even though we have feasted on man-to-man all year long. That was Dan Quinn.
2 things. One, Commander fans, you saw on Sunday
what happens
with Dan Quinn's defense. It actually happened against the Lions. They did rack up over 200 yards rushing, but Washington got the turnovers, and that was the biggest difference in that game. But when you play someone that's disciplined like the Eagles, who create turnovers and have Saquon Barkley back there, and your one and only goal on defense when you're playing the Eagles is to stop Barkley.
Well, to be fair, they did lose one of their big defensive guys that I think
Deron Payne. Yeah, that is a big presence. Yes,
so huge, and just especially when it happened. All right, let's go ahead. I think we've talked the Cowboys stuff to death. I don't think we can. You can always say more, but a lot of this is simply going to be we've got to see what they're going to do with coaching style and stuff. So let's go ahead and talk the. Make sure the volume's down. Let's go ahead and talk. We'll start with the one that happened first. Philadelphia, they advance as a game that was close early on, got to be a blowout. And you said it best. We like Dan Quinn, but you and I pointed Dan Quinn out 2 years ago and said if his defense doesn't get turnovers or sacks, they don't know how to do a good job of stopping teams.
Yeah, that's just the moniker of his defense. And 75% of the time, when he has some players, it works out. But it's those 25% of the times, which of course usually happens in the playoffs. You saw on display here, like that defense is not geared to stop the run. That defense is geared to excel and pass rush with a lead, and they just didn't have it. Like they played a very disciplined team, and this is what happens. Not many teams are going to be like the Eagles, and that's why Dan Quinn will win more games than he loses. But there is a plateau with that defense. He needs to evolve. Kudos to Washington. In one season, they get a new owner, They get a new GM, a new coach, a new philosophy, new quarterback, and they go from a 4-win team to a 12-win team. This is their best season since '91 when they won the Super Bowl. I think it was a success, but clearly there is a plateau with this team if they don't tweak that defense, and that's all on Dan Quinn.
Yeah, 100%. And and I'll say this: Daniels didn't have the best game, but the moment didn't look too big for him yesterday at all, in my opinion. Like he was perfectly fine. I mean, again, he wasn't perfect, but I'm just saying, I didn't look at him and go, "Oh man, he lost him the game." That defense just could not stop Barkley, who on the game, first play of the game, and he houses it. And you and I were like, "Yeah, this ain't gonna go good."
Hey, man, you made a good point about Jaden Daniels. Rookie quarterback for Washington. Hey, still to this day, no rookie quarterback has ever started a Super Bowl, but he did not look flustered at all. He looked very calm. Now, the Eagles were getting to him just because the Eagles have Jalen Carter, which the NFL, for some reason, all 31 other teams allowed Jalen Carter to fall.
Well, that was a car thing.
Yeah, I know. But, you have him. They got big old Jordan Davis playing on the outside for some reason. They got Nolan Smith at linebacker, Nakobe Dean, who was hurt, but they somehow get Zach Bond from the Saints, and Bond becomes a All-Pro. Then they drafted Kenyon Mitchell, outstanding cover corner, and they got Cooper DeJean, a white cornerback who's fantastic.
Why do you say that like it's a shock?
I mean, it is a shock.
And he had a really good game yesterday. In fact, one of the early plays, Daniels had a guy open, and DeJean got there at the last moment and broke it up. I know he doesn't have an interception for the year, but hey, he's white, dude. We got a grade on the scale here. I think for white cornerbacks, a pass deflect should count as an interception.
Hey, the fans love him. They were chanting Cooper. Him and Reed Blankenship has kind of blossomed in that safety role.
They really have. Yeah, he's really good. I noticed one of the things that I felt that they did a really good job yesterday, and a lot of it is the game in of itself, is they took the run game out. And one of the ways they took the run game out for Washington, not only, of course, the score, is the safeties were playing really good, filling the lanes and stuff.
And that really makes life a lot easier for the defense in general. Everybody can just play their zones, and like you saw what happened. I mean, for the most part, Philly's defense dominated that game, and the Philadelphia's offensive line, which is one of the best in the league, they just controlled the line of scrimmage. Saquon just kept having big play after big play. He didn't really ask much of Jalen, but whenever he did throw, he made the big pass to Brown. It's just a well-rounded team. I got to give Kellen Moore and that staff credit. Like, their offense is not what they were expecting it to be this season, but it ended up working.
I mean, I think it's made them better. And like you said, Jalen Hurts isn't being required to win games, and that makes him a better quarterback. 20 of 28, 246 yards, a touchdown, 3 on the ground, which, of course, tush pushes and all. But I thought his throwing was sharp. I mean, he hit A.J. Brown in a couple big plays, including the touchdown. Dallas Goedert is just continually – it felt like Dallas Goedert was at the end of his career, and yet he's not pulling up a ton of stats, but, man, he's making big plays when they need him to.
Yeah, and he's healthy at the right time. He had some injury issues earlier in the season, but he's back, and he's only in, I think, his 7th season, but he still looks great. Whenever these receivers make catches, just because of the way they play offense, it always seems impactful. It always seems important. So any catch, like where you just saw Devontae Smith drawing the pass interference, it just seems like it's a big, big play, not some 2-yard screen pass. Man.
They're showing the fighting at the tush push.
And this was the highest scoring game by a team that won the champ. 55 points was the most by any team in the NFC title game.
And they did it like they could have scored 3 or 4 more times. And by the way, as we're seeing now, Washington fumble-wise spit the bit. Like, I do think – I'm not a big believer in choking. I think that gets overused. But I think sometimes guys that, their special teams guys and stuff, and all of a sudden they're in the biggest moment of their career. And you saw Washington, they struggled with putting the ball on the ground.
Yeah, turnovers will kill you, especially in today's NFL. That is the biggest difference in this ball game. I think if they don't have those turnovers, Washington didn't have turnovers for the first 2 playoff games they had this season, but in this game they had plenty of it, and most of those turnovers resulted in points for the Eagles. To me, that was the biggest difference.
Oh yeah, 100%. And credit to Philly. I'm not saying that they don't deserve some credit on that, but some of those fumbles were very much just not holding the ball. They had 4 turnovers, 3 of them fumbles, an interception. Philadelphia. It's funny because Philadelphia, again, this is short field. Philadelphia scored 55 points, but Barkley only ran for 118 yards. They only had 459 total yards of offense. We've seen teams score 21 points and have 500 yards of offense, but the Eagles didn't have to have a lot of long fields because their defense and their special teams were getting those turnovers.
Efficiency is key. Man, it's just so great, like watching them play, and I hate to say that because I hate the Eagles. But I mean, I love the way they play. Like it's very mistake-free football. Their defensive front 4 is aggressive. Their secondary is opportunistic. Their offensive line is top 5 in the league. They can run the ball. They make good decisions, safe decisions passing the ball. So I mean, Kansas City is going to have a lot to handle in 2 weeks. This is a different Philadelphia Eagle team than they played 2 years ago.
Oh, I don't think this Eagle team is better than that Eagle team.
I mean, what they do, I think it makes them better tested in the playoffs. I think they'll be a tougher out.
I agree with that.
If anyone could stop Barkley and the Philadelphia offensive line, it can be the Chiefs and their outstanding defense, but I just want to see what Spagnuolo has cooking up for the next 2 weeks. Because
speaking of, next Monday, our happy hour will be nothing but a Super Bowl preview. It only might be like an hour show, but we're just going to preview that. We're going to let the Super Bowl cook next week. We're also about to start a series. Now, we're going to technically start it after the Super Bowl. That's just because. But one of the things that we're wanting to do for OutDrank The Coverage and L4 Media this year is do more Facebook Reels and communist TikTok and all that. So we're going to start a series where we're going to do a recap for every Super Bowl, like a minute recap. We're going to pop those on. So be looking for those. I think those are going to be really fun. But yeah, I do think I don't know if this Kansas City team as good as their Kansas City team that beat the Eagles, but I think that the Eagles are still I don't know. I still don't know if I trust Jalen Hurts when he has to do it. If you're able to negate the run game and force Jalen Hurts to win you the game, I don't with his arm. Sorry, he could definitely do it with his leg. I just don't know if he can do it. But again, we'll talk about that next week. So for you, is this Washington? They're young and they're about to blossom. Are they the Lions? Is this Lions last year where next year Washington might win the division? Or is this, hey, that was a great year, but next year and I don't mean go all the way back to like 4 wins, but do they go back to 7-10 or 10-7 type?
With the changes they made top down, I think they're kind of here to stay. They have a good mixture of youth and veterans. Now, having to replace some of those key veterans like a Bobby Wagner, that might be.
You think he's out?
I don't think he's out. He's still young enough for one or 2 more years.
Freaking good year, dude. Like I was shocked at how good of a year he had. Like he almost looked like Bobby Wagner of 2014.
And you just didn't expect it because he went to Washington, and Washington had always had this reputation as just, Dan Snyder led. But I mean, it's the culture has changed. This is a way
100% in a good way.
And I think another year with some continuity on both sides of the ball, it's going to do wonders for that team. They might not be 12-5, but I think they'll be a tougher out in 2025 for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they're now in that grouping with, we hope, Dallas. We don't know. Because again, Dallas either front runs or crashes. Dallas hasn't had that 10-7, but still make the playoffs yet. But I think that they're in that with San Francisco, with Seattle, with the Rams. with the Cowboys, with the Packers. I mean, and you and I talked about this, and this is the thing that I think no matter what happens going forward, I mean, unless Schottenheimer proves to be the next Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys are about to go 3 out of 4 or something, you and I are going to always look back at this year and be like, damn it, if y'all just would have done it. Like if y'all, and we don't know, you can't guess that Dak would have got hurt and all that, but it just felt like this was the one time where the NFC was still down. I don't think the NFC's down next year. In fact, I think we could start making the discussion that we're going to have a lot in the offseason. I think the NFC might now be almost back on par with the AFC in the depth of how many teams could be playoff teams next year.
No, that's a really good point, man, because if you think about it, the Rams have gotten better the last couple of years, and the 49ers, they just need to be healthy. Once they're healthy, that's a 13-win team. That's a very good team still.
Speaking of the Rams, funny thing, I do think Niners their window's kind of closing, but they still have time. The Rams are if they block Jalen Carter on a second down in that last minute of the game. Have you seen that play? Wide open. Puka comes wide open to the middle. But Jalen Carter doing Jalen Carter things, sacked Stafford, and then the very next play they threw it was incomplete. Anyway, so that is the Eagles. They, of course, go on. Now let's talk about the game everybody was looking forward to. And you got to give them credit, man. This game did not disappoint. It was exciting. It was just both quarterbacks playing really well. Both quarterbacks had fumbles. Both quarterbacks at times got sacked. But we can talk about the no call or did he make first or not? But it's refreshing to see a game where two teams played. One beat the other one, but you're not going, oh, well, Sean McDermott can't be the head coach because he was terrible, or Josh Allen's a terrible. This was just a really good game. Somebody had to win.
Yeah, Buffalo now has lost 4 out of 5 games 4 out of 5 seasons. Their season has ended because of the Chiefs in the playoffs. That is demoralizing. That's heartbreaking. I thought Buffalo was the better team going into this game, but
I did too.
Kansas City just does Kansas City things. They're just such a all-around great. Like, they just always find a way. They know how to adjust. That the continuity with quarterback, Chris. It's like the quartet. You have Andy Reid, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Travis Kelce at tight end, then you have Chris Jones at defensive tackle. Like, they had those 4 constant players during this stretch, and they just kind of filled in the gaps where they may be. It is so hard to beat this team. It's just hard for me to pick against them now. I really thought Buffalo was the better team, and especially they really did outplay the Chiefs in the regular season when they handed them their first loss. But playoffs are very tricky, and Buffalo, this was their second AFC title appearance in the last 5 seasons, and both of them got ended by the Chiefs, and it's very unfortunate how this one ended, 32-29. Chiefs are almost there. Bills are almost there. They're knocking on the door. I just don't know what they're going to do to get over the hump.
Well, it feels like both them and the Ravens are knocking on the door. And then again, as you've talked about, you've got a young Charger team, a young Denver team. You've got a Houston team that, we don't know where they fit into all this. It feels like I contend that Houston took a step back this year. I think C.J. Stroud took a step back. And in fact, if you want to compare, C.J. Stroud's rookie and second year kind of looked a lot like Dak's rookie and second year, and I think a lot of rookies. I think you're going to see the same thing with Jaden, because you and I have talked about this. People don't understand what happens in the offseason. Every team in the AFC after C.J. Stroud's rookie season spent days just breaking down his film to figure out weaknesses. That's what's about to happen to Jaden Daniels. And people say, well, yeah, they did that in the season. Yeah, but it's way different when you've got 3 days instead of when you've got a month to do nothing but watch every snap. And that's what Mike McCarthy's doing. Mike McCarthy watches all film. He says that. But, I want to say this about Kansas City. We can talk about the calls.
I got a question before you say that about Kansas City.
Go ahead.
What do you think of the Texans firing Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator?
I think that you and I talked about this before. That's just how it is now. You have one step back. Even though I felt the offensive line underperformed, they had a crap ton of injuries in the wide receiver core. I think he deserved another year, but I also get it. You got to you can't. Again, what we talk about with Dallas, you can't keep holding on to we'll improve. Sometimes you've got to be like, no, we've got to force this because we don't have a big window. As great as everything is with Texans, CJ Stroud's about to be in year 3. He's about to be going, hey, money, how much you paying me? Nico Collins, he's going to be wanting some money. So I get it. I don't like it, but I think that's the NFL today.
I just felt it was very unfortunate. One, because like you said, the offensive line issues, the injuries, and then their top three receivers all missed time. Tank Dell out for the season, Stephon Diggs out for the season, Nico Collins, who played in the playoffs but was out for a few weeks during the season. I just feel like their defense was solid. They had one of the best pass defenses in football. I think a healthy Texans, healthy receivers, I think that was a 12-13 win team instead of a 10-win team. And they hung with the Chiefs. They weren't. You knew they were going to lose, but it wasn't like it was a blowout or anything. So
yeah, but I still look at the division they're in, and even as banged up as they are, they should have won that. They should have won that division more comfortably.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Anyway, what do you want to say about the Chiefs? Hopefully, I didn't make you forget.
No. We can talk all about the 15 wins is the weakest 15-win team in the history and all, and this offense isn't the same. I think we've learned that Andy Reid knows just enough to win in the regular season, and I'm not showing you everything because Patrick Mahomes in this game looked like Patrick Mahomes that we got used to a couple years ago. He's only threw 26 times, but he's throwing down the field, big plays, big moments. And look, I know Bill Belichick and all that, and that's valid. But I still contend that Andy Reid is going to retire as the greatest coach in NFL history.
He got to his 300th win this postseason, and he's knocking on the door in Don Shula's record. We thought Bill Belichick was going to break that record in a couple of years, but he got fired by the Patriots last season, and now he took the North Carolina job. There is one NFL position still open. The New Orleans Saints still haven't hired a head coach. Joe Brady's already taken his name out of consideration. He's coming back to Buffalo for another season.
I was a little shocked. Oh, I don't want to say shocked. I want to give Joe Brady credit because, that felt normal. That felt natural that he would become the Saints head coach because he famously was the offensive coordinator for the LSU Tigers in 2019 and all that. I appreciate him realizing, like you and I keep trying to tell people, unless they hit a home run draft or something, the Saints are about to get bad. Their defense is old. Derek Carr's their quarterback. Alvin Kamara's getting old. Their wide receiver core is nobody. I think the Saints are the team that is about to possibly completely tank.
And I could definitely see them coming back in a couple of years. But yeah, I think for the sake of long-term success, they probably should tank. Not saying they're purposely going to do it, but they need to get rid of some of these old talent and bring in some young blood, so to speak.
I think Mike McCarthy would be a really good hire there because he could bridge that. He's young enough. I think that people are realizing this year. Again, I think a lot of people have started realizing after he got rid of Kellen Moore, whether you like the move or not, obviously he wasn't a puppet here because he's the one that said, I need to be calling the plays. And Jerry let him. I think that he can handle a rough season. I also think he's the type that could get Derek Carr to play better. I like Mike McCarthy as an offensive coach. I liked Mike McCarthy as the head coach of the Cowboys outside of the 2020 year where he was trying too hard. Once he found his groove, I think he did perfectly fine as a head coach.
A record says he was a good coach. I don't think he was a bad coach, but I just knew that the way he advertised himself made me think, it made me think we're going to win a championship. Like him spending the entire 2019 season watching videos, game clips, trying to find an edge, trying to come up with new tweaks to his offense to make him a more marketable head coach. Get back to the Super Bowl yet again. It was just all smoke and mirrors. Like I did not see that translate onto the field. But
you know what shocked me? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I want to remember this. Brian Schottenheimer was talking today, and I meant to pull this, but there's just only so much audio you can pull. But he's talking about, like, look, we want to fix the tempo. You know, Dak and the guys that they have are better when we have a tempo about us, and we want to bring back play action. That was the thing about Mike McCarthy's offenses. It was so stale. Like there wasn't, we can joke about Garrett, but Garrett's offense did things like, using a wide receiver in the run game more. And to be fair, they did that a little bit with CeeDee Lamb last year. But where did the play action go? Which is what Dak Prescott thrives on, is play action. That's what your tight ends thrive on, is play action. And maybe that's why I think the reason I'm not as mad or hurt about the Schottenheimer hire is he's hired a guy that on defense, he's like, Matt, you go take care of the defense. I'm going to fix the offense. I think that's going to work, or could work.
There's potential there, and I want to believe. But again, when Jerry Jones talks about consistency and he needed that consistency going into next season, that just gives me no hope for next season. But I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. It's just the Cowboy history the last 30 years, Jerry Jones wanting consistency makes me feel that it's just going to be a 7-10 season, which would be consistent from this season. So we'll see what happens. I like Schottenheimer, but I don't care about liking a coach.
Yeah,
I want him to be effective. Like,
no, 100% agree.
The way Jerry Jones was talking about Schottenheimer, I really felt that he viewed Schottenheimer more as a son than he did his actual son, Steven. And I did find it funny that Steven just kept calling his dad Jerry. I know it's probably more of the business. Treating those press conferences like a business, because he is the boss.
I can dealing with people in the oil field business that had sons working for them. That was something that 40 years ago, Jerry and Steven had a conversation, and Jerry said, "You never call me dad. You call me Jerry, because you will never get respect in any boardroom, anything in the oil field, if you call me dad or daddy." So that's very much apropos for the oil field.
Yeah. Man, I was looking at that big 4th down stop that everybody's talking about. It's two different angles. Like if you look at the angle where you're looking at Josh Allen's back, it's a 1st down. But then the other angle, when you look at Josh Allen's face, it's not a 1st down.
Yeah, hang on. That's the one that they made it. That's the one with the fumble. So I'm going to the next one. Yeah, I agree. Again, that's why I said it. Whenever it happened, I was like, I don't know what the call is going to be, but this is one of those that whatever the call is going to be, I'm perfectly fine with. It wasn't going to be, I didn't think it was demonstrative either way. And a lot of times, whatever's called on the field, that's what that gets upheld, because people don't understand. It's almost like when you talk about finding someone guilty or innocent, or we don't have enough evidence. There's overturning a call because we have evidence, or the call stands because we have evidence, or there's the call stands because we don't have video proof, and that's what this one felt like.
Yeah. Oh man. Such a good game, though. Such a good game. Just like the 21 divisional game, just like last year's game in Buffalo, when we thought Kansas City was finally going to lose because they had to play a road playoff game. Yeah. The first in Mahomes' career. But it just didn't matter. It doesn't matter location. They're just, Kansas City is Kansas City. This is for you and me. I mean, they're not the Eagles, so I can just sit back and appreciate their brilliance.
Is Patrick Mahomes at this point the most clutch quarterback in the history of the NFL?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Yeah, I know people are going to hold the Super Bowl loss against him, and that's perfectly fine. But we're in a different era now. You know, you and I was always talking about that. You know, we lived in the era, grew up in the era where losing a Super Bowl, like that, almost docked you 1,000 points in life. Now it's like, hey, Tampa Bay. People realize also that like Tom Brady added a lot, but that Tampa Bay roster, again, a Tampa Bay roster almost made the playoffs with Jameis Winston throwing 30 interceptions, folks. I mean, that roster was way better than anybody will ever give it credit for. But I just think that the way Mahomes plays in the playoffs is just so. In fact, I'm gonna look it up, but it just, I mean, you just can't count anything out when it comes to him in the playoffs. And the dude is only 29 freaking years old.
Yep, he turns 30 years old later this year. He hasn't been blown out in games much. The first loss he's ever had was that Super Bowl.
31-9, what did?
Yeah. And then the next season he got blown out. I mean, but the Chiefs got blown out with the Titans. And that kind of started a run where, oh, wow, the Titans just know how to play the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And even with like Malik Willis at quarterback, the Titans were still able to hang with the Chiefs no matter what. So something Vrabel knew. He just knew how to coach against the Chiefs. I don't know what it was.
Muck it up. He knew how to
muck it up. Yeah, which he's probably going to have to do for his first season with the Patriots this season.
So, hang on. Holy crap. This is so funny when you talk about it. So for, wait, where's this? I'm trying to get to the, hang on. Sorry. I'm trying to do this right because I'm looking up stats of the people, you know, it's Tom Brady is considered, I think, now the greatest quarterback in all time. Perfectly fine with that. 7-time Super Bowl champ. That's how that works.
Yeah, the stats and the Super Bowl say that he is.
So in his playoff career, Tom Brady, 35-13, 88 touchdowns, and 40 interceptions, and beat Patrick Mahomes, you know, match to match.
Mahomes' first two losses in the playoffs were to Tom Brady.
That's right. New England and Tampa Bay. So his record again is 35-13. Patrick Mahomes in 20 games, exactly 20 games, 17-3. This is the thing that blows my mind. 43 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Wow.
That is just crazy, man.
And when you think about like losing in Tampa Bay, and by the way, you know, you and I will appreciate how NFL fans have understood that game. Patrick Mahomes didn't have great stats, but Patrick Mahomes, I still will contend he might have played better in that game than he did in any of his wins. They had no pass blocking, and his guys just kept dropping passes. Like there were that 3 or 4 times where he's, you know, jumping up in the air horizontally, throwing it underneath while getting, you know, somebody picking his boogers as they're about to sack him, and his wide receiver's wide open and drops the pass. But my God, Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I mean,
that game reminded me of some of his games at Texas Tech.
Yes.
When they played in any good team, they always struggled, almost similar to that.
There was in Sports Rehab, our page that we love, the Facebook, check it out. We might invite you, we might not. Texas Tech football said that, you know, they showed a picture of Patrick Mahomes and said the haters are absolutely sick. And somebody responded, "You never even won a bowl game with him at quarterback. You should be sick." I mean, 100% right. They're not wrong.
Oh, man, they wasted his talent there at Tech. But, hey.
I mean, that's just, you know, and to be fair, Mahomes wasn't Mahomes yet.
And, you know, same thing with John Elway at Stanford or Josh Allen at Wyoming. There are these great quarterbacks at just mid teams or, you know, mid colleges, and they somehow stand out. Or Jay Cutler at Vanderbilt.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize the video had stopped. Let me get that off the. Yeah, Jay Cutler is going to be one of those that will be studied in colleges of what happens when you have everything but the desire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay Cutler was like a nicer Jeff George. Because Jeff George was an asshole. Jay Cutler, by all accounts, seems to be a good dude. He's just like,
Hey, Jeff George's best friend is Jason Whitlock. Come on now.
wait, what?
Well,
Is that true?
Jeff George and Whitlock, I think they went to the same University of Illinois, and I know that Whitlock's favorite player is Jeff George. That was the joke I was trying to make because you know how
Hey, what are
Jason
you gonna?
Whitlock.
Hey, why don't you, dude? Why can't you be a griff like that and like, you know, make us some money by saying some things that are kind of inappropriate and everything?
He used to never be like that too, but man, I
Oh,
used to
I know.
like Whitlock back in the day.
Back in early Fox, I liked him. I liked Jason Whitlock. He was funny. He always made fun of himself being the fat. You know, I was just an offensive lineman. I wasn't athletic. I just fell forward, things like that. And then the grifting happened. Anyway, all right. So we're going to be doing the Super Bowl preview. So that's why we're not going to really talk about the Eagles and the Chiefs. All jokes aside, I meant to do the Imperial March music, like who you're rooting for. But to be honest, I think this is going to be a good Super Bowl. Like the last one was freaking amazing. Like, I know we all want to because it's, you know, oh, the Chiefs, but dude, that was a great Super Bowl. That was a freaking phenomenal Super Bowl. I think this Super Bowl will be right there. This is a one possession game. I think this is going to be a lot more points than people think, and I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm gonna root for the Chiefs to get the 3-peat, but I mean these are two really good, fundamentally sound teams. Andy Reid's playing against his former team again in the Super Bowl, 2 years ago. History's on the line. You know, Travis Kelce might propose to Taylor Swift if they win. Who knows?
I don't give a shit. So, speaking of talking about going back now, this is what we do. We're going to bring it back to the Cowboys. What team was Nick Sirianni part of before where he was a coordinator? Oh, he wasn't. Oh, when he was a head coach. Oh, he wasn't. Look at him. His second Super Bowl, folks. No, seriously. Again, this is what we talk about. We can say that the Brian Schottenheimer hire won't work. History of the last 30 years tell us that in some way it won't. He might be successful, but not, oh my God, successful.
John Harbaugh was the special teams coach for the Eagles when he got the Raven job in
Andy
2008.
Reid was just a quarterback coach.
So there's a history.
Oh, yeah. I just realized, dude, this would be a fun little project. I want to bet that Dallas has had the most winning coaches not, I don't want to say lose their job because like Parcells, but let's think about it. Parcells, I think he had a winning record with the Cowboys. Wade Phillips had a winning record with the Cowboys. Jason Garrett, winning record with the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, winning record with the Cowboys. They all lost their job at some point. I bet that's unique. That's that kind of shit nobody ever thinks about.
Yeah, I think outside of Dave Campo, probably every coach the Cowboys has had a winning record.
I almost said Dave Parcells.
trying to merge them together.
All right, so Bill Parcells, he was 34-32 in Dallas.
Yeah, he had that bad 04 season with Testaverde.
Yeah, that's the one that always kind of. Wade Phillips, I know he had a winning record, even though he had to lose at the end. He was.
Yeah, he had the 3 good seasons and then the 1 half season that was bad.
And to be fair, I do agree. I mean, you know, we all in the moment weren't big fans of it, but I do appreciate that Jerry Jones said, you know what, I probably shouldn't have fired him in the middle of the season. We should have kept trying, and I agree with that.
It was one bad stretch. Phillips had a really solid run as the Cowboy coach, and I did feel bad that he got fired after that blowout loss to the Packers. I really kind of felt like he probably just deserved another season, but it is what it is.
Oh yeah, Dallas, he was 34-22.
And then I know Garrett had the one bad season in 2015 because Romo got hurt, but I think the other years he was at least 8-8 or won a division or something like that.
Oh yeah, he finished with a winning. I know he finished with a winning record. I'm trying to figure it out.
I mean, the 2014 season and 2015 season were basically 500, essentially, just like 2011 to 2013. So
he, as a head coach, was 85 and 67. He won 59% of his games.
Yeah. Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think it was 5-3 that half season he interim for Wade Phillips after he got fired, and then 8-8 the next 3 years, 12-4, 4-12, and 13-3, 9-7, 10-6, and then 8-8.
And then Mike McCarthy, 84 and 49, 59%. So again, that's the thing that I know we can say they haven't made a NFC title game. Perfectly valid. At times they make weird roster decisions. Perfectly valid. But the 3, 5, and 11 years were the bad time for the Cowboys under Jerry Jones. Ever since then, and of course before then, they've been competitive. I mean, again, that goes back to you can't really ask a lot more than to be a team that is competitive, that makes the playoffs consistently. And then after that, it kind of feels like it just becomes a crapshoot. Because again, look at the Ravens and the Bills. That they can't get past each other or Patrick Mahomes. But nobody's, well, I guess Sean McDermott last year, but that's kind of cooled down. Because to be fair, I didn't feel like anything Buffalo did this year was like, oh my God, that's why he doesn't need to be head coach. In fact, I think this might have been his best year as a head coach, to be fair.
Just with the staff too, and Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator.
I like that Brady's staying. I just like Ben Johnson last year. I love that coordinators, and maybe these are the ones that become the good head coaches because they go, hey, I'm not just taking the next available job. Because I don't think, again, I think Mike McCarthy is perfect for the Saints because he's already got a Super Bowl. He's got to bridge them. Joe Brady doesn't. This is his first head coach. If he goes to the Saints and they're 3-14 next year, we're already talking about does he get fired? And I think the Saints could be that bad.
Hey, Joe Brady almost had his reputation ruined after that one season with Carolina and Matt Rule. And, that's right after he basically was a head coaching candidate after what he did with, LSU in 2019. He took Joe Burrow. He made Joe Burrow who he was, whether anyone wants to believe that or not. Joe Burrow was a good quarterback, but what he did in 2019 with Burrow and then Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Thaddeus Moss, Randy's son, that was probably the best offense I have ever seen in college football ever.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I do appreciate that Matt Rule has came out and said, look, that wasn't my decision. That was off, front office. And we now kind of realize that's probably right. I never liked Matt Rule in the pros anyway. I think he's a wonderful college coach.
I love what he's done with the Cornhuskers.
Yes, it feels like he's at least getting them to be competitive. And people, that's a show for another day, why Nebraska isn't what Nebraska was, because Prop 48, that was the thing. It's a long thing, and eventually we'll talk about it. That's why they hate Texas. But I felt that Matt Rule and Carolina did Joe Brady wrong, and I like the fact that he's kind of been able to rebuild that in Buffalo. And by the way, I think that's that's Matt Eberflus can rebuild his reputation as defensive coordinator, and I am such a believer now. I either want a CEO head coach that's just, I'm here to manage everything and y'all figure it out, or I want a coach that I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to hire people to do their thing on the other side of the ball, and I'm going to let them work, I'm going to work, and we're not going to get in the way of each other. To me, that's the best way you do it.
I'd love to see what happens. I mean, Dan Quinn kind of built or repaired his reputation when he came to Dallas after the stank from Atlanta. So maybe Eberflus
wasn't even his fault. You and I have talked about this. Because it's funny how close they kind of happened. But, the Rangers collapse, the World Series, heartbreak, blah, blah, blah. The 05 NBA season, the Mavericks up 2-0. Looks like they're about to win their first title. They collapse, and then the next year it just gets worse. Dan Quinn and the Falcons up 28-3. When you have a collapse that epic, it's not about how good you are anymore. It's about we're going to have to change the culture because you just can't get past that.
Well, I mean, like I said, what's the thing that stays the same? we realized after the 2019 season and after the 2023 season, the real issue there was Kyle Shanahan. He kind of gave it and took it away. Shanahan gave you the opportunity to get to the Super Bowl, but the way he does the play calling, it kind of leads him to making bad decisions in the second half that leads his team to not with the 2021 NFC title game, up 17-7 against the Rams.
Well, dude, the 21 game against Dallas, like we all remember the Dak slide and all that, but they basically threw Dallas back into that game with Jimmy G when all they needed to do was just get a few first downs and punt, get a few first downs and punt, get a few first. They were going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Shanahan is one of those that he is so good from quarter 1 to quarter 3 in game planning, but for some reason in quarter 4, he always eschews the running game. It blows my mind that a guy that is so predicated on running the ball forgets to do that in big games in the fourth quarter.
It's just mind blowing too. Like they're up by more than one score. He has the running game. He has the line. He has a team that's built to finish games off with the running game, and he just does not do it.
And by the way, give him credit because the very next year when Dallas had to go out there and Pollard got hurt, and I still contend that changed everything because the offense for Dallas was finally kind of getting some work done and all, but. Point is he realized in that second half, just keep running. Just keep running the ball. We don't have to throw the ball. God, that game. I hate Dallas.
Just, again, with this Dallas run in the 2020s, the NFC was just prime for them to just break through and get to a Super Bowl, but they just couldn't take advantage of it. There's a lot of opportunities, man. And it's as a Cowboy fan, it's very frustrating, but
tough.
It is what it is, man.
Heartbreak. Hey, at least the Stars are good. Hey, they had a great game last week against Golden Knights. Jake Oettinger, who is so. This is a weird thing about Dallas sports. Jake Oettinger has now become the Dak Prescott of the Stars. He can stand on his head for 72 saves, but if he gives up 2, there's a certain. And to be fair, these are naive hockey fans, but there's a certain group that starts to blame him. And he had one of the most epic last minutes against the Golden Knights. I meant to bring that video up and I forgot. But he basically had 10 saves in the last minute with a man extra for the Vegas standing on his head. And it feels like the Stars are kind of starting to round in the form. After all year long, they've been good, but it's like, Winnipeg has been better, and then them in Colorado have kind of been yo-yoing between in second and third. But it feels like they're finally starting to figure things out offensively for the Stars.
Well, with Winnipeg, Connor Hellenbrook is probably going to win the Triple Crown for goaltending and probably win the MVP. It's just he's the best goaltender on the best team in hockey.
And I'm calling it now. They won't make it out of the first round.
I mean, this has been a great. They had that 15-1 start to the season hockey record, and they've kind of coasted since. I mean, they had some bumps in the road, but they're kind of finding their groove again. But yeah, I could definitely see them being bounced. There's a recent history with hockey teams having a great.
I mean, that's not even recent. There's a long time history of.
I mean, I still remember the Red Wings doing it in the '90s a lot of times. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where
Boston, 2 years ago, broke all the records and wins and all out in the first round. I mean, that hockey is the last sport. Hockey is the sport you'll never be able to do analytics because it's still, at the end of the day, a hard rubber puck on ice. Weird crap happens. And that's why, again, and I've talked about this, and football is the same way because football is physical. Numbers don't matter if a team's more physical. But the thing that hurts basketball and baseball, and I get it, you want to try to be efficient, but when you get so efficient that everybody's doing the exact same thing and it's boring, that hurts the sport.
And after that big trade Carolina and Colorado did, do you think Carolina finally breaks through?
Wait, breaks through how?
Well, they had issues with their offense, especially on power plays.
You talking about this year? Yeah, I think right now I hate to say it, but if you want, if you're new to hockey, Toronto is basically the Dallas Cowboys of hockey. They're going to put up beautiful records and then they get beat and they can't ever get past certain teams. I feel like Florida and Carolina are the two deepest teams. And in the playoffs and hockey, that's what matters. And that's why I'm not worried about that. I think Dallas still comes out of the West because even if they haven't put up the stats you want, they still, to me, are the deepest team. Yeah, they're really missing Joe Pavelski. That felt like it was time for him to go, but they didn't really replace him. But you can figure that out. Wyatt Johnson, rookie last year, he's kind of not been figured out in year two, but he's had to adjust and he's still adjusting. But yeah, I think when you look at Carolina and Florida, they're the two deepest out of the East.
I'm really excited to see what Ottawa does the next couple of years because they're starting to find their mojo and they're they haven't been good for a while, but now they're starting to get good and they're starting to crack. Them in Montreal, they're starting to crack into the top 8 in the East. I always like to look for those teams.
Montreal is in that weird thing where, it's funny how you look at, Dallas made that weird COVID year run, and we all thought that was going to be it for them. And yet they've consistently kept getting better and winning since then. But Montreal, their run was like, where the hell did this come out of? And so they smartly said, hey, that was awesome, but we're going to tear down. And they're supposed to be in rebuilding mode this year. Like they're supposed to be 2 years out. Everybody's playing out of their mind with Montreal. But the problem is, and that is, especially, and I'm telling y'all folks, hockey is the most, my joke is if you're named coach of the year in hockey, you're probably getting fired the next year. That's just how that shit works. And Montreal feels like that. Ride it as long as you can, but understand Montreal's probably still 2 years away from being a consistent playoff team. Detroit, that's a team that, you and I, man, 80s, 90s, they were like, you just penciled Detroit in. Dude, it's been 10 years since they've been relevant.
And they had that long stretch, like 20, 25 years where they made the playoffs consecutively. It's kind of weird. Now they're not in the Western Conference. They're in the Eastern Conference.
Which is where they have always should have been.
Yeah, you say that, but then it's like you kind of miss the old Detroit-Colorado rivalry back in the 90s.
Oh, I do. Detroit, Dallas, Colorado, Dallas, Detroit, Colorado. No, I totally miss it, but it just being in the West, that just never felt right.
This is the point I'm trying to make going back to football. The Dallas Cowboys really shouldn't be playing in the NFC East, geographically speaking.
Well, yeah, but do you really want to be in a division with the Texans, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans?
No.
I mean, success-wise, that'd be pretty cool, but no, I mean, I just, and I'll admit that might be old man of me, because if they did form that division, eventually the rivalries would be, intense and all, but I like where they're at in the NFC East. I would never want to change in that.
Sticking with football, what do you think of the other head coaching hires this week with, Pete Carroll going to the Raiders, Aaron Glenn going to the Jets, and our boy Liam Cohen going to the Jaguars.
Okay, so I think the Raiders, almost exactly like the Saints, you're hiring an old dude to come in, and I'm saying the Saints. I still think the Saints will now hire Mike McCarthy. You're bringing in a guy that he knows quarterbacks, he knows all that. You can figure it out. I like the move for the Raiders, but not for instant success. I think he will add stability to that franchise. Something that, and you and I went back and forth on the John Gruden thing. I'm still torn on him because I just hear what people say about him and all. But the thing that he was doing, it felt like, until everything happened, was he was kind of stabilizing the program. I think Pete Carroll's going to do that. I think Pete Carroll's going to be. He's going to have terrible record, but I love that he doesn't care. I think he just wants one more shot. I think he settles them down. Cohen in Jacksonville, that's great. I hope Dallas gets him as an offensive coordinator 5 years from now when he's fired, because until we can talk about Jerry Jones, but Jacksonville's situation's even worse. I don't know where they're at. I could see them. I mean, they're in a division that they should be competitive, and they've got really good pieces on offense, like really, really good. Travis Etienne kind of figured out this year with Bigsby, like, hey, you know who Travis reminds me of Reggie Bush. When Reggie Bush in New Orleans, when they stopped trying to give him the ball 400 times and started giving it to him 200 times and letting him cook, that's where it felt like Travis Etienne was. They've got a really good young wide receiver. They got a really good secondary running back with Tank Bigsby. I still think Evan Ingram is young enough to be a solid 2 or 3 more year. They've got to figure out the defense. But again, for Jacksonville, that culture's got to change.
I feel where you're going with that, and I agree with you. I never put that together, but bringing Liam Cohen from Tampa to Jacksonville, it's kind of built similarly with a better tight end. Like if you think about it, Tampa had Bucky Irving and Rashad White. Bucky Irving is Tank Bigsby. Rashad White is Travis Etienne.
Dude. Now I will contend. I think Cade Otter is a better tight end than Evan Ingram.
Better overall, but I think for passing tight end, I think I would give it to Ingram.
That's fair. That's 100% fair. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, dude. That's a good point. Rashid White and Bucky, and they both got great names. Bucky Irving and Tank Bigsby.
They've been calling him Ducky Irving because of his Oregon roots.
That's cute. I still feel like,
and I love what Cohen did, building off what Dave Canales did with Baker Mayfield in 2023.
And that's right about the bridge. I still feel like we have not seen the best of Trevor Lawrence.
We kind of saw it toward the second half of 2022, but we just haven't seen it yet.
But I think if Cohen can tap into that, I think Trevor Lawrence next year could easily become a MVP type player. Because I think Trevor Lawrence is way more talented than Baker Mayfield. And look what Cohen and as you said, Canales before he became the head coach of the Panthers, look what they did with Baker Mayfield. And I know we got Doug in sports rehab. He's a UT grad and he hates Baker Mayfield. I don't see how you can hate Baker Mayfield. He's one of those guys. He is Ryan Fitzpatrick if Ryan Fitzpatrick could have finally found a position where he started for 5 years. I love Baker Mayfield. I think he's fun to watch. I think what he does right and wrong is a blast. I love the fact that he's like, yeah, I trash on Texas because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm an OU guy. We're supposed you that's the part you're supposed to play. And I think for Jacksonville, if Cohen can kind of give Trevor that like gunslinger, because I think that's the issue with Trevor. I think you remember you and I talking about this in 2016 or 2017 and 2018 with Dak, that they had preached to him so much, don't turn the ball over, that it became adverse to the offense because he was afraid to go down the field. I think that's where Trevor Lawrence is now. He's always trying to be safe. And I think he needs a guy to tell him, dude, you've got, as Crash Davis says, in Bull Durham, you've got a arm that was touched by the hand of God. Use it. I think that's what they need to do with Trevor Lawrence and just unleash it and throw the ball down the field. They got a really good, will be a second-year wide receiver. I really wish they wouldn't have gotten rid of Calvin Ridley, but you can find those in the draft or and I guess what happened to Christian Kirk? Where did he go?
Yeah, I think he went suck. No, I think he just wasn't as good this year as he was prior years.
I think I thought he had a season-ending injury, dude.
I think so too. Hold on. But I think when he did play, he was not up to snuff. It says one article I'm looking at right now, it says he might get cut.
Yeah, he only played 8 games this year.
Yeah, he's still a good receiver.
I'll tell you this, he'll get cut because of money. Because remember, Jacksonville oversigned him. But I will say this: if he gets cut and's on the free market, hey Mario now joining us. He said, "Sorry you're late. That's okay. We're about to break down." Noah's going to do a 7 deep on the Titans coming up. Dude,
broken collarbone.
I wouldn't mind Christian Kirk as the number 2 for Dallas next year.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that are looking for that second option. The Cowboys might address it in the draft, or they might address it in free agency. I would be very happy with Christian Kirk coming to the Cowboys, being a compliment to CeeDee Lamb. So, yeah, it just really just preference, really.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk to the Tennessee Titans. What the hell? Because Mario's in here. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. I think every team in the AFC South feels like next year could be their year.
Same with the NFC South.
Yeah, but like you and I kind of look at the Saints. Saints got to figure out a quarterback. That's a big issue. Atlanta, I agree. Of course, Tampa Bay, I agree. But I think the Saints are the team that.
Hey, if Mike McCarthy goes to the Saints, who's to say Cooper Rush?
Oh, good. They can have him. 7 interceptions when it matters. Now, or Trey Lance?
Trey Lance. He has experience. It wouldn't shock me if he tries to bring one of those two over.
I think if you bring in Mike McCarthy, I think Derek Carr's more willing to stay.
Maybe. You have a coach that has gotten you to the promised land.
Dude, I mean, again, I know he's getting older, but Alvin Kamara, I think this year had one of his best consistent years. He played more games than he had played all year long. He was healthy. He was great in the passing game. I mean, I said this earlier. I don't hate Mike McCarthy to the Saints. I think that gives them a little bit of, a chance. And you're right. The rest of the South is still confused. I still feel like, again, injuries. I still feel like Buccaneers are draft. I think Buccaneers are a draft away from still being a NFC title team. I think that but let's go back to Tennessee. So,
number 1 pick.
What are you doing? You and I have had this discussion. And by the way, I want to say this because I know we had private discussions. When I'm saying I don't think Sanders and that Cam Ward are top 5 picks, I understand that the teams are going to make them. I'm just saying I don't know if either one of them are. But in saying that, I don't hate Cam Ward to Tennessee.
I don't hate Cam Ward, Tennessee either. I just don't know what the Titans are going to do. I almost feel like they might wait a year or two and just find like a quarterback that's available for cheap in free agency, and then just get Sam Darnold, and then draft Travis Hunter because they're lacking some firepower.
Dude,
but
Tennessee, oh wow,
a lot of their issues was turnovers at the quarterback position. So yeah, they have to address the quarterback position.
But I still go back to that last game, and I know it's fool's gold, but there's that throw where Will Levis at about the 40 just throws a frozen rope 60 yards down the field, and it still makes me go, do you give him another chance? Mario says Cam would work, trade down, or get Hunter.
I really think if they don't trade down, I think they should just get Hunter and then try to get Sam Darnold somehow or someone else in free agency. I don't think
I'm worried about how Travis Hunter's game projects on the next level. Like it.
And where does he play? Does he play receiver? Does he play?
I mean, I don't think he's going to. I mean, I think you can do the Dion thing where you play him a little bit of both, or you do the Mario Scott says, I'm in the camp to keep Levis. I kind of think so. I am. I think so too. Draft Travis Hunter, figure out where you're going to play him, but draft Travis Hunter. And then go Levis, you got one more chance. Let's go. We're going to roll you out 17 games, barring you just get really, really terrible or you get hurt. We're going to roll you out 17 games, and we're going to figure it out. And either you work or next year, when there's probably better quarterbacks, we'll make a decision then.
Dude, I know I was completely wrong, but going into the season, I was bullish on the Titans because of everything. No.
Okay, you weren't wrong about what they did. My whole point is the roster they built was they were taking a lot of great guys like Pollard, who was good at the not 70 snaps a game, but 30 snaps a game, and then going, we now need you to do 70 snaps a game. That was my only issue with them. It felt like they were building a roster with a veteran quarterback when they didn't have the veteran quarterback.
That's a good point. I guess I just felt like they had their quarterback of the future, and they're just trying to get like Lloyd Cushenberry from the Broncos. They're trying to, get Calvin Ridley from the Jags.
Pollard from the Cowboys.
So, yeah, they're building a talent around Levis. And then on the defense, just to take the pressure off the offense, you got L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs. You got Chidobe Awuzie from the Bengals. I just felt like what they did, and then they got Trevondre Sweat from the Longhorns in the draft. I feel like what they did in the offseason suggested that they were going to make a big improvement, especially in that crappy division. But I couldn't predict all those turnovers that Levis was throwing.
I don't know, dude. I feel like the Titans are the team that you make a couple draft picks correct, you make a couple of those low-level signings, and they could be all of a sudden next year at 10, 11 wins. Because I'm going to say this again. I love D'Amico Ryans. I'm not saying that Houston is taking a step back, but I think Houston is kind of where they were with Matt Schaub, kind of where they were Deshaun Watson when he was good and not massaging people or getting massages. They might be landlocked at what they're going to do. And again, next year's year 3 of Stroud. Year 4, he's going to be asking for money. I know they're going to pick up the 5th-year option, but he's going to ask for money. So then all of a sudden, what are they going to do? And I feel like the AFC South is going to be way more competitive in a better way than what people think. I don't think Jacksonville is as bad as what they were this year. I don't think the Colts will be as bad. And again, remember the Colts literally, you beat Minnesota. Was it Minnesota? No, who was it? No, Giants. You beat the freaking Giants, and you're still in the playoffs. And you literally would have basically sealed your playoff spot, and you couldn't. I don't think all that happens next year. I think the AFC South might be one of those where we look up and go, holy crap, they've got 2 playoff teams.
Callahan might win Coach of the Year, depending on what happens this offseason.
All right, what are you going to talk about next?
Let's see. Let me look at these notes. Man, we were really dominating with the Cowboys. Oh, I wanted to get your opinion. The NFL awards happens like
Let's talk about that.
Thursday or Friday before the Super Bowl. I kind of like that new tradition they're starting to do. It's like a whole ceremony. Snoop's going to host it. It'll be February 6th at 7 o'clock Central Time. I'm going to run through the awards.
All right.
You tell me who's going to win.
All right.
I'm going to start from the bottom up. So AP Assistant Coach of the Year.
They'll probably give it to Brady or to Spags. I think they're both. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They're not. My bad. I just looked up the list. How is Spags not nominated?
Victim of his own brilliance.
So it's Brady, Joe Brady, Vic Fangio, Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn, and Ben Johnson. Of course, now remember, these are all voted on before the playoffs. Ben Johnson will probably win it.
I agree. I think he's going to win it. All right. AP Coach of the Year.
Again, before the playoffs, Dan Campbell. Well, no, I think Dan Quinn. I know Campbell, it seems, but like he was the hot moment last year. This year, again, I know they didn't vote in the playoffs, but you can kind of make the case like the Lions did what everybody thought they would. Usually it's the team that nobody thought would win. I mean, hell, Jimmy Johnson won it as a 7-9 coach in 1991. People don't remember that.
This is that's probably my toughest one because it's Dan Campbell and Andy Reid who had the best records at 15-2. But then you have what Kevin O'Connell did with Minnesota and the reclamation project of Sam Darnold. Like Kevin O'Connell is like the new quarterback whisperer in the NFL. Sean Payton.
I kind of feel like it should be Sean Payton because him or Dan Quinn, because both of them took programs that everybody was like, they are the shittiest. And both of them made the playoffs. And of course, Quinn made to the title game. But again, that doesn't matter. I think it'll be Quinn, but the coach of the year is always a weird one.
It is a weird one, and usually it's given to the coach that has the most improved record.
Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and just say Andy Reid just for shits and giggles.
I'd love that, but
it rarely happins. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
No, 100% right. All right, AP Comeback Player of the Year: Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez. Wait, DeMar Hamlin again?
Yeah.
For what?
I don't. He actually had a really good season. He actually started most of the season.
He did perfectly fine, but what did he come back from last year?
I think it's just a full season back. I don't know, man. He was on this list, so I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, no, it's not him. I think it'll be Burrow. It
I'm,
should be Darnold, but I think it'll be Burrow.
I'm gonna go just to say someone else. What J.K. Dobbins has done with all the injuries
LaGrange.
from LaGrange, Texas,
Mhm.
all the injuries he's had, and have being under the Chargers, great offensive line, run first offense. He had a great season. He had the season you were thinking he was going to have when he came out of college from Ohio State. So, good for him.
On the year, he had 905. Yeah, he didn't hit the 1,000. He won't get it. It's quarterback, dude. He would have had to have a 1,500-yard year just because that's how they do it. It'll be quarterback. It'll be Joe Burrow, which it shouldn't be because he's good. I don't think the comeback of the year player should be somebody that was good, then got hurt, and is good again. Give it to Sam Darnold, who was terrible and then was good. That to me is a comeback player of the year.
I would not knock that one. I like that.
All right, let's go to defensive rookie of the year. Cooper DeJean, Brandon Fisk, Quentin Mitchell, Chop Robinson, Jared Verse. I know Cooper DeJean, it's the hot name again, white cornerback. The dude doesn't have an interception. Like, he's been great. I'm not saying he's not bad. He has been really, really good. But he doesn't have an interception this year. You kind of, in your secondary, if you're going to be good, you kind of need a couple interceptions. I don't know. This is one of those that it's just going to be favorites. He'll probably win it, but I would give it to, I don't know, man. I think I might give it to Chop.
I probably would give it to Jared Verse. It kind of just symbolizes.
Dude, he was really freaking good for the Rams this year, dude.
After Aaron Donald retired, they have been trying to load up on the defensive side just to replace one of the greatest interior defensive linemen of all time. And they nailed it with Jared Verse. He's really good. He's a linebacker for the Rams. On one of the other nominees is Brandon Fisk, another great lineman. So their future is intact. They just are just loading up. They basically did what the Vikings did. They replaced Danielle Hunter with 3 guys.
Yep, that's a good way to describe it. All right, AP Rookie of the Year offensively. It'll be Jaden Daniels. The list is Brock Byers, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Bo Nix, and Brian Thomas. It should be Brock Byers, but it'll be Jaden Daniels.
I was going to say, yeah, it'll be Jaden Daniels because quarterback, Commanders, 12 wins. Forget what they did in the playoffs, which is reach the NFC title game. But in any other year, it would be Bowers.
Yeah, Brock Bowers is going to make. I say this, I don't mean this seriously, but he's going to make people forget about Tony Gonzalez. Brock Byers is the real deal, folks. I think he's about to take the tight end to a level that we've never seen before. That's how good he was because he did all the stats he did with terrible quarterback play. All right, AP Offensive Player of the Year. Barkley, the Eagles, Burrows, Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. So this tends to be, and I'm kind of surprised Josh Allen wasn't nominated for this, but this tends to be the second place to the MVP. So I kind of feel like Barkley will probably win this.
Yeah, usually Offensive Player of the Year is the most outstanding player,
but not the quarterback,
but not the most valuable. Yeah. Usually not the quarterback. So,
by the way, can we say this now? Saquon Barkley should be the NFL MVP. Period. I don't give a shit what position he plays. I don't care what position he plays. The Philadelphia Eagles, and again, this is where I want to look at Jerry and go, Jesus Christ, dude, if you just signed Henry or Barkley. But the Philadelphia Eagles went into this season with everybody's on the hot seat. Jalen Hurts can't win the big game when it matters. Maybe A.J. Brown's overrated. Devontae Smith's a great second receiver, but he's going to need a ton of money. And Saquon Barkley walked in and said, shut up, bitches. Give me 2,000 yards. We're going to the Super Bowl. He should be the MVP, period. I don't even think it should be up for discussion, but he's not a quarterback.
I agree, and I would even say that he should win because typically what happens with these position players is that they're not consistent from the start of the season to the end, but Barkley was throughout the entire season. So that gives even more credence to him being the MVP of this season. But you and I both know
Lamar Jackson wins it.
Lamar Jackson. I mean, the stats that Jackson had are just too gaudy to not give it to him. I would have said Josh Allen without looking at Lamar Jackson's stats, but I just can't. I just can't not look at he has better stats this year than he did the other 2 years he won MVP.
Oh, Lamar?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, this again is the hypocrisy of all this. If the AP is going to put Josh Allen up as an MVP, then why isn't Josh Allen up for the Offensive Player of the Year? That makes no sense to me. And I'm not saying that the same player needs to win both, but if you're an MVP candidate, you should at the very least, be a candidate for the best player in on the side of the ball that you play. Now, in saying that, I think it's very, very obvious that I think Barkley should win it. He won't. I think Lamar Jackson should win it. He won't. It's going to be Josh Allen. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't know. I mean, I'll say this. We all talked about the beginning of the year. You got rid of Stephon Diggs. You've got Malik Hollins and, Kamir Shakir and Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid and Darren Knox, and James Cook. That's all your weapons. And damn it, if Josh Allen didn't make that work. I think Josh Allen's a quarterback, kind of like Brady, that doesn't need a number one wide receiver. Just give him guys to throw at.
Hey, and for what it's worth with Eli Manning, as soon as those toxic personalities like Tiki Barber and Jeremy Shockey left, he became more of the leader of that team. And I think that helped them propel to the Super Bowl and a win. I kind of see something similar with Josh Allen he was way better than Eli Manning, but when Stephon Diggs got traded to the Texans.
Yeah.
When it was just a bunch of 2s and 3s at receiver.
Yeah.
No, not a clear number one. No, maybe Shakir or Keon Coleman might be elevated to that in the years to come. But yeah, I think just having this team with not the demonstrative personality of a Stephon Diggs, just having Josh Allen be a leader, I think that made them a better team, and I think that made him a more valuable player. I don't think he's going to win the MVP. I think it will be Lamar Jackson. As far as Offensive Player of the Year goes, I think it's hard for me to not consider Jamar Chase because he did win the Triple Crown, but he has Joe Burrow as a quarterback, so it's kind of easier.
Yeah, but still, greatest wide receiver season almost in history. But then I also look and go, the Bengals worked because T. Higgins.
Yep.
Cincinnati. If Dallas signs him, I'm fine with it. But don't let T. Higgins go. Don't.
That'll be the dumbest thing. And Joe Burrow loves him, and you want to make Joe Burrow happy.
He is not a number 2 receiver. He is a 1B. He is what, if you would have got Metcalf and Lockett at the same time, instead of Lockett being a 5-year career before Metcalf, T. Higgins is all the physical that Jamar Chase. You can make the case that Jamar Chase isn't even a possession receiver. He's a big play receiver because you've got T. Higgins to do all the dirty work. I know that he would never be it, but if we ever had a 6th man of the year award in the NFL, I think it's T. Higgins. And maybe it's because I have him on fantasy and I've had him on fantasy every year, but when he's healthy, the dude just produces.
T. Higgins for the Bengals is what Justin Jefferson was for the Tigers in 2019. He will allow Jamar Chase to just be single covered because of the threat of that other receiver.
You know who could have been T. Higgins, and I think he would have been in today's NFL? Alvin Harper.
Because he was a 30-catch, 700-yard, 6 touchdown guy.
On a team that didn't do all that. And a team that didn't throw the ball 400,000 times. Anyway, all right, let's go to the next one. We did
Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, defensive player of the year.
To me, this one's juicy.
All right. Zach Braun, Eagles linebacker. Interesting. He's great, but he doesn't like have all the stats. Myles Garrett was great all year long. Terrible team. Trey Hendrickson, great at times. Patrick Surtain, Broncos, really good. TJ Watt. Now, okay, so here's the weird thing about TJ Watt. TJ Watt had the MVP sewed up in November. And then TJ Watt went on this really weird year where he had like, I think up to this point, it's 140 defensive snaps without one stat. Not a tackle, not an offensive, an assist, not a sack, not a block pass, not anything. That's a little weird to me. I don't know if that's telling going forward, but if I'm Pittsburgh, that's a little bit of a concern right there.
That's a major concern, and I didn't realize it was that bad. I knew he kind of tapered off as offenses tried to gear towards stopping his big play ability. Man, I didn't realize that. This is the toughest award for me because you want to award Bond for his improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And to his, like what he said was he just was in the right system. He never was really in the right system that fit his skill set. Finally is with the Eagles, and he's a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Myles Garrett, he's always going to be in consideration for this. He's just a fantastic player. He has the most perfect physique I've ever seen. Like Aaron Donald probably has a close second, but Myles Garrett is just ridiculous.
That's a really good comparison. You and I have talked about it, right or wrong. Somehow the whole thing with Mason Rudolph gets forgotten about. I don't know if that's fair or not. I do appreciate this year. There's a video where he picked a Steeler, lost his helmet, and he picked it up and he acted like he was going to throw it. I appreciate that, but I still think that's weird that just all got swiped under the rug. But in saying that, I think right now the top two just pure defensive players in the NFL is Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. I think and I think, Micah Parsons didn't play enough this year, so he doesn't deserve to be. But if you go look at his stats per game, this might have been Micah Parsons' best season. I mean, that dude, I know his podcast and he's a Cowboy and all that gets lost, but I think just per snap efficiency, it's Myles Garrett and it's Micah Parsons. So I think Zach Braun, though, that's the weird one. Like, I don't.
This award is, Defensive Player of the Year. It can be considered a most outstanding defensive player, or it can be most valuable defensive player, depending on how the voters decide. I personally think it's going to be Trey Hendrickson, which is odd because Cincinnati had a terrible defense, but it wasn't because of him.
All right, so on the year, Zach Braun, 151 tackles. Okay, look, that's great. Tackles are the weirdest stat in football because there's no official. Every coaching staff does it themselves. Some are like, if you're not the one dude hitting him, you don't get a tackle. And then others are like, 7 guys fell around him. They all get tackles. So I don't know. Now let's look at Trey. Really, Trey? You think he'll?
I think it's going to be him. I look at all these candidates. I can always say a not like Watt, not consistent. Bond, at this thing, he just came up. Like, he had a great season, all pro, but I just don't see him winning the Defensive Player of the Year award. Garrett, I think it's just because the team was so bad, I just can't give it to him. But I know there's a precedent for this happening. 1992, Cortez Kennedy, Hall of Famer, rest in peace.
Seattle. Oh, God, he did die. Damn it. Way to ruin my day.
They were from a Miami Hurricane. I think Seattle was 2-14 in 1992, but won Defensive Player of the Year just because of how good he was. So, I mean, I would be fine with Myles Garrett getting this. He's one of my favorite players. Trey Hendrickson, though, I just feel like, especially what Cincinnati did toward the end of the season with that late run. I love Patrick Surtain. I loved his dad back when he was with the Dolphins in the early 2000s. This is a toss-up. You could tell me any of these guys would win, and I would be perfectly fine with it.
And Defensive Player of the Year has always kind of been that way. Like, how do you quantify it? Hendrickson had 17.5 sacks. Really good. But they didn't make the playoffs. And at times their defense was bad. And I'm not saying that's his fault, but again, this is that hypocrisy of we shoulder the quarterback with so much stuff, but then with Trey Hendrickson, we're like, but he's really good. He had 17 sacks. Yeah, but his defense ranked 30th. That's not his fault. Okay. Well, then how is it the quarterback's fault when, so I don't know. That's a good one. Whoever wins it, I guess I'm fine with that. It's hard to quantify that. All right, and then we go to the most valuable player. You think it'll be Lamar Jackson for his third, two in a row, and third?
It will be his third, second in a row. That's who I think's going to win. I think it should. I think who I want to win, who I think was the most deserving, or who's the most valuable to their team. I almost feel like it should be a three-way tie between Allen, Barkley, and Lamar. If they don't do a tie, and I have to, had a gun to my head and I have to make a choice,
I think it's Josh Allen.
I think it's Josh Allen. Yeah,
I think they're going to spread it out to him. And again, for all the look, Lamar Jackson had the best season he's ever had. There's no doubt about that. But you also gave Lamar Jackson the best running back in the league, or at least top two. You also, you saw Zay Flowers finally become the receiver we thought he could be. Rashad Bateman starting to become the receiver he thought he'd be. Mark Andrews continuing. I know we're going to talk about the drop, but Mark Andrews is an all-pro tight end. Isaiah Likely is an all-pro tight end. Josh Allen, you literally took the biggest target away from him and said, hey, go win with that. And not only did he win, but he was statistically great again. I just feel that they're going to be, I personally feel it should be Barkley. You take Barkley from the Eagles, I don't know if they make the playoffs this year. Now, to say that, if you take Josh from the Bills or Lamar Jackson from the Ravens, they probably don't make the playoffs either. So again, I'm like you. It's almost like we've had, two ties in history?
Yeah, 97 with Brett Favre and Barry Sanders, and then 2003 or 4 with Peyton Manning and Steve McNair.
I could see this easily being a tie. And it'd be kind of crazy if it is, because it's funny because you flip the race, but you had Peyton Manning, the stat machine, and Steve McNair, maybe didn't put up the greatest stats, but if you took him from that team, they collapse. And you look at Baltimore and the Bills this year, it's kind of the same thing. But
the Eagles, hey, this could be a three-way tie. This could be a first of its.
It won't be, because they don't value running backs like that anymore, which is kind of funny because you and I keep saying, and we've told people this for years, the running backs are coming back, because you know how Philadelphia beat Washington? They literally just played everybody back and said, Jaden Daniels, you're gonna have to check down. We're not gonna allow you to throw big passes. You're gonna have to run the ball and check down. I just don't think Barkley will get enough credit. I do think that we're gonna see near a tie for Lamar Jackson, or you get one of those where the guy who got the most first place votes might not win, because people don't remember it's a weighted scale. So you get so many points for first, so many points for second, and Barkley will be that dude that'll be on second of a lot of ballots, and then he'll split Lamar and Josh Allen.
Any one of those three guys, it is correct. Jared Goff was the best great quarterback on the number one team in the NFC, but he's not going to get. Joe Burrow had the stats, probably his best year as a pro, but they didn't make the playoffs. They were 9-8. He was a victim of their terrible defense. So yeah, any one of those other three guys, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson, very deserving.
So has Patrick Mahomes become the LeBron James of the NFL, where he has been so amazing that even though if you really want to say who's the true MVP of a team, he won't get the votes because he's not putting up the stats he was a few years ago, because this team has realized we don't need him to throw for 5,500 yards and 70 touchdowns. We can have him throw for 4,030 touchdowns and we're still going to win.
Yeah, it's not even a situation where he's a victim of his own brilliance. It's just he doesn't need to, like you said, get over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns.
But can I ask you something? On that team right now, there are 3 Hall of Famers, and that's it.
Yeah, Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones.
And
Maybe Trent McDuffie in about play another 5-7 years.
Oh, Mario says he's Michael Jordan. Michael was still putting up like a shit ton of points, though. Like he was still like leading the league in stats and all that. And by the way, I don't even know if Chris Jones will actually get in the Hall of Fame, or if he does, it'll be veterans because he's missed so much time. He hasn't put up the all-pro stats, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I think he's first ballot Hall of Famer, but I have to look at his stats. But I mean, I could definitely. He's only 30 years old, so it's not like he's played. You know, he's not 35. So maybe. I mean, I gotta look it up because now I kind of.
Okay, so hang on. So here we go. So I'm not looking at stats.
Okay.
Chris Jones has 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, he has 6 All Pros. Yeah, he's probably gonna make the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Well, because I was just thinking, I remember,
and then 3 second teams before that.
Because I even remember, I don't remember watching him play live, but like Mean Joe Green, he was great up until maybe his mid to late 20s, and he was just kind of like a solid guy on team that won 4 Super Bowls. Like he just wasn't the same player after. He had a lot of injuries early on, but he was still a solid contributor and definitely first ballot Hall of Famer. That's Mean Joe Green, of course.
Mario clarified what he's saying. He's saying that Michael Jordan and Mahomes are the same because Jordan and Mahomes shutting out other players from winning titles. That is a really good point.
Mario about to replace us on this show.
Shut up. Anyway, but he's right though, because Jordan kept Stockton, Malone, Gary Payton, Craig Elo.
Sorry, all the legends. No, I mean, like when he left for 1.5 seasons, Olajuwon was able to make it. Shaq was able to make it in his Orlando days. Patrick Ewing finally made it to the final. So yeah,
shot 1 for 4,000 in the NBA Finals against the Rockets. By the way, I will contend if there was a team that could have beat the Bulls with Jordan was the Rockets. Like that, they were the one thing because they had that size inside, and you had at least for 1 year crazy Vernon Maxwell, who we'll eventually have to do a look back on because that dude was Dennis Rodman with a jump shot. Like he was so crazy. I love that. I loved the Rocket City back then, dude. I've told you that. I grew up in East Texas, so I didn't have. And you, it's funny because you grew up in Dallas. You don't have a hate for Houston. It's a weird thing where Houston hates Dallas, and most of Dallas is like, okay. But for me in East Texas, I was a fan of the Astros, the Rangers, the Oilers, the Rockets, the Mavericks, all of them. And so I loved Rocket City back then. But that's a great comparison, Mario. Good job, dude. You might have to, hey, you know what, Mario, if you want to call me later, no, he doesn't have to be on the show necessarily.
Wow.
All I need is a token. I'm just saying. And y'all look alike. Would anybody even know? Oh, did I just go racist? I love y'all both. Do you have anything else to say?
I think that's.
I'm about to get a strongly worded letter from Noe.
We can talk more about the whole Trent Baalke getting fired and Liam Cohen.
Okay, yeah, that's a good. Let's talk about that. So basically, now I've heard 2 different versions of this. I've heard that Cohen, it's not that he had anything against Baalke. His whole point is I don't want to be the hire for somebody that I don't think really wants me.
Which is very valid. But from way we
go ahead.
The way we were looking at it, we see Liam Cohen going to talk to the Jaguars with Trent Baalke as the GM. Cohen deciding to go back to Tampa as offensive coordinator, as the highest paid coordinator in football, like
which would be paid as much as some head coaches are getting. I think it was like $5 million a year,
roughly. Yeah, which would make him the highest paid.
Yeah, like middle of the road offense or head coaching. Did it feel like Tampa was maybe thinking, "Hey, dude, we're going to bring you back, and you might be head coach in waiting because we've given Todd's done a great job, dude. Let's accept this. This is what you and I talk about when we get mad about the Cowboys." So the Buccaneers in 2020, the Rams in 2019 sold their soul to be competitive, right? That's what we were all told. Oh my God, yeah, they might win, but look at what's going to happen in 4 years. Well, you know what? In 4 years, both of them made the playoffs. Both of them have been consistent division winners. So maybe Tampa would be like, hey, Todd, you've done a great job, but if you just slip a little, you're out. We're going to bring in Cohen.
Yeah, I really think Todd Bowles, he's good. He was decent with the Jets in the mid 2010s, but he's an older guy. He's not going to be there long term.
Yeah, how old is Todd? He's like, what, 65?
I don't know his exact age, but there needs to be a coach in waiting. And I think they might have looked at Liam Cohen, who's a young guy, I think 39 years old.
He's 61. I mean, that's the same.
Pete Carroll's 74, and he's the head coach for the Raiders right now. So
did you see the video? By the way, I like the hire. Again, we talked about with like Mike McCarthy with the Saints. I think Pete McCarthy and Frank, our friend who's a big Raider fan, he sees it the same way. He can add, kind of like Bill Parcells to Dallas, he can add legitimacy and stability and kind of hand it off to the next guy. And we can
hire Bobby Slowick as your OC, aka coach in waiting or head coach in waiting.
I don't know if you need to do a coach. I'm not a big fan of coach in waiting. I saw that as a Texas fan, and I think we talked about this last week with Mac Brown and Will Muschamp. That doesn't work. But you hire a guy with the understanding of how long he's going to last. And so, with Pete. But anyway, go back to, so he's walking in. He's walking into the Raiders office today, and he like trips, and he does the whole like, who did that? Who tripped me? Somebody tripped me. And so, there's a little bit of fear there, but no, I like the hire. But no, look, maybe Cohen, and this is okay. We're going to wrap this up by going back to the Schottenheimer. There's no guarantee that Ben Johnson's going to win. There's no guarantee that Aaron Glenn's going to win. Yeah, there are the hot coordinators. Matt Nagy was a hot coordinator. Matt Eberflus was a hot coordinator. I'm trying to think of the top of my head now. Chan Gailey at one point, even though
Brandon Staley.
Oh, hell yeah. Brandon Staley was, dude, I remember you and I even talking about it. And we liked D'Anton Lynn, the guy that was the head coach. But we were like, oh, dude, this Chargers are about to go in a different world. They're about to, and he never did. So we've got to stop assuming just because Ben Johnson's the hot hand that makes he's going to be the winner, or that Brian Schottenheimer's not, that makes he's going to be terrible. Because again, I go back to, dude, when the Eagles hired Nick, everybody was like, okay, that's weird. Dude's got them into 2 Super Bowls.
Yes, Sirianni. I mean, he kind of is the prototypical Eagles coach.
Yes, very much so. Again, good hire because they knew the culture.
Yeah, he fights with the fans, but I mean, he's still successful. He's made the playoffs, I think, every year since he's been there, and 2 years he's made the Super Bowl. The other 2 years he got bounced in the first round by the Buccaneers, but there's a lot of good consistency there. Like they've won at least 9 games every year since he's been there.
Exactly.
He operates like a CEO. He gives full autonomy to the offensive and defensive coordinator. I don't like the Eagles, but I like him there. I think the Eagle fans just need to chill out. Like they got their coach.
No, burn him down, Eagles. Y'all hate him.
No, I hope they lose, but whatever. But yeah, I really think he's the perfect coach for the Eagles, and I think they don't really appreciate him as much as they really should. I think he's an excellent head coach. And I think, Nick Sirianni is perfect. I think he's the example of a cultural fit. The Eagles have a specific need at head coach, someone that can deal with their fans. And I think he's the perfect guy for that.
Yeah, you either need to be able to deal with them like Andy Reid did and just ignored them, or like Nick did and wants to fight everybody.
Which is hilarious for us.
By the way, I watch him and I'm like, this is the biggest douche in the world, but damn it, he knows how to win. I still love the fact, though, his first year he wore the Beat Dallas shirts, and then Dallas beat the shit out of him. Anyway, I think we're done, brother.
I think so too, man. Yeah, it was. Hey, man, it's good, man. Oh yeah, the Hall of Fame for baseball: Ichiro, CC Sabathia, Billy Wagner.
So I'm going to say this now. I don't have a problem with him being in the Hall of Fame, but CC Bathia feels like he was a very good, never great. I know he won one Cy Young, but I don't know. That just I think there's just that's just how this works. As Hall of Fames get older and bigger, players will get in that might have not deserved it. But man, he just and I feel bad saying that because like I love everything about CC Bathie. He's a big old dude. He dude literally almost had a heart attack and like got a pacemaker and everything, and then kept pitching. But I don't know, man. I never looked at him and thought that's a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, he tried to lose some weight because it felt like it was.
Have you seen him now, by the way?
Well, I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
He tried to lose some weight during his playing days because he felt like it was better for him long term, but he pitched worse. So he gained the weight back and he went back to his all-star form. Now, immediately after he retired, he's shredded. He's very skinny now.
Billy Wagner, I actually appreciate because that dude was great. I mean, I know he's known for the Albert Pujols home run, and that like broke him for a while. But I think he deserved it, second most in saves, and was just consistent. And again, I don't want to. I hate that. I don't want to feel like I'm shitting on Sabathia because I really liked him when he was with Cleveland and when he was with the Yankees and all. I don't know. Ichiro, the dude that didn't vote him in, come on. That's got to stop. This whole idea, and this is how it used to always be. Like, people don't understand. Babe Ruth didn't get in with 100%.
Nolan Ryan didn't get in with 100%.
Nolan Ryan didn't get in. At the time, though, when he got in, that was the most. And then Mariano Rivera, which that's something we're going to talk about later, but not tonight. But Mariano Rivera has the highest vote total in. We got to stop with this bullshit of, well, I'm just not going to vote for him because I don't think anybody should get in on the first ballot. That's just dumb. Ichiro, I don't think people now that weren't there then, they don't understand how the argument is how, he'll be fine, but he'll be at best a fourth outfielder. He'll be at best maybe make an all-star game or two. And that dude just dominated baseball. And he dominated it late in life. If he would have played his whole career in Major League Baseball, he would have broken every hit, offensive average, and all those records that there could be. And he was a great outfielder with a cannon of an arm.
Rookie of the year and MVP in 2001 with the Mariners.
And nobody wanted him to be rookie that year. Everybody tried to say that wasn't deserved because he was already playing in another league.
And he got 3,000 hits in MLB. And then if you count what he did in Japan, he broke Pete Rose's all-time hits record. So, legend.
And he's a legend for his all-star game pregame speeches. There's a reason why the American League dominated when he was the consistent representative. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just type in apparently he would go just like, I want you to go and skull fuck them and everybody, we're going to kill their kids. We're going to burn down cities. And it just became legendary. I think that's awesome.
Awesome, man.
All right, folks. That's going to do it for us. We want to remind everybody, please think about joining our Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/L4 Media Company. It's $3 a month. It really helps us be able to do different shows. We're about to start rolling out so many of these shows. We're about to do these Facebook Reel draft prospects. We're doing the closing time, which I'm going to do an episode later on this week on closing time on Patreon. So please check it out. Again, patreon.com. At L4 Media Company. Next week, we're going to be back. We went, we went 2.5 hours. Next week will probably be a shorter show, but we're only going to focus on the Super Bowl, unless something big breaks. If there's some other big sports story, we'll talk about that as well. But next week will be our Super Bowl preview. We'll be able to finally introduce one of our sponsors that we're really excited about. And me and Noah are going to be happy because that sponsor is basically paying for our Super Bowl food, and we're going to get some great food, so we appreciate that. Anything else you have to say?
That's all, man. Looking forward to next week's preview and the Super Bowl in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're gonna both pick the Cowboys to win, right?
It's time for the
That's gonna do it
old-time
for this week. He's
happy
intern Noe, the
hour.
Commissioner
So
Pro.
pick up
I'm
your
Terry,
step
the
and
Terry. I don't know, the white guy.
smile
Until next time, this has been OutDrank the Coverage, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions, Beach Whiskey, Lazy Dog Kettle Corn, and L Dog Gourmet. Until next time,